everybody. Welcome back to Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs. With me as always, Xan Sprouse, my co-host
Hi, everybody.
extraordinaire.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land.
Yes, so welcome back. We're hopefully ready to talk some more Twin Peaks because, hey, we're a Twin Peaks podcast, go figure.
We're ready. I hope you're ready.
Yes, and we have lots to talk about, of course, as always, because it's us. And,
Sheriff, we got a lot to talk about.
Well, we just spent like 50 minutes just talking right before the podcast. So
we really should just save it for a podcast. I don't know why we...
These should be like bonus episodes or something, like the outtakes.
We should have podcast outtakes for our Patreon subscribers.
Oh.
Hint, hint. Southgate Media Patreon page.
We should have Ghostwood Red.
Ghostwood Red, yes. Try it free for 30 days.
And then get mad when all the content's doesn't live up to your expectations.
Oh, come on.
I'm just kidding.
The Patreon people only would need to donate like $2 to hear us.
Yeah.
Or we should give them like a 5 minute. We should do that for our Patreon subscribers.
There you go.
We should have 5 minute extra video podcasts of us showing off all of our stupid crap. They could see your T-shirt.
Yeah, they can see my Bang Bang Bar T-shirt.
They can see
from the
my brand new
Roadhouse.
my brand new Great Northern Hotel keychain.
Right.
So they could see my David Lynch soundtrack collection, what have you.
Which is impressive.
Yes, we should do that for $5 or more monthly Patreon subscription. We should have that
for our premium subscribers.
For our premium subscribers, yes.
Yes. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, today I think we'll talk about Twin Peaks and pop culture.
Yes, Twin Peaks homages, and I say homage because years and years ago, and I've still never found this, and if anybody out there in the internet land can find this for me, that would be fantastic. I found it was in Entertainment Weekly, and it was a picture, and this is 20 years ago plus, probably.
Right.
It was a drawing of The Simpsons where it was the cast and supporting cast of The Simpsons framed to look like the Rolling Stones' It's Only Rock and Roll album.
Nice.
Which is basically them descending some velvet stairs with a bunch of muses and pixies all around them.
Okay.
And I thought this was hilarious, and I went to a couple conventions of people that had Simpsons prints looking for them. No such thing. So I wrote to Entertainment Weekly, and I said, and this was about 5 years later, saying, listen, I remember this from a while ago. I don't have the issue. I don't have any information. I apologize for being so vague, but it was a parody that you did of the It's Only Rock and Roll album by the Rolling Stones, but instead of the Rolling Stones, it was the Simpsons and the cast of the Simpsons. And they wrote back to me and they said, those are called homages. So I suppose when it's done with even more love, it's an homage.
Okay. Well, some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, I don't know how much love was involved, but still.
Well, we love some of it.
We love it. We love it just because it references Twin Peaks. So
yeah, we do.
And some cool stuff. So yeah, we got SNL to talk about. We've got Simpsons to talk about, and I'm sure Xan will have one or two thoughts about that.
Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes of The Simpsons. I could probably keep up with you on that.
One or two. You might have some references. And Fringe, which is in my wheelhouse because I'm a big Fringe geek. And some weird stuff like Sesame Street.
Which is totally in my wheelhouse because I am a Henson fanatic.
And Scooby-Doo, Mystery Incorporated, and some really oddball stuff. Darkwing Duck, people. We're going to talk Darkwing Duck. So,
welcome back to the 90s, friends.
Pretty much. Yep. Well, hey, friends, there's a 90s show right there.
Which is kind of our podcast anyway, is kind of welcome back to the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. So strap yourselves in for a nostalgia ride because we got, we're going to do a little time travel here. So let's start off right off the bat with the big one. The main thing, I think, for us, because this sketch was perfection. The Saturday Night Live sketch from September 29th, 1990.
1990, yes.
One day before the second season of Twin Peaks, the original series, premiered.
Wow, really?
Really. And that's that. lovely research stuff that you like me doing.
See,
Uh,
that's the thing. You do all those historical date type research things that I always forget are so necessary until you bring them up, and I think, oh,
yeah.
I should have looked that up.
Well, I try to put it in at least a context.
Good.
So
I think that works.
yeah, especially when you like if we do go chronologically, if we end up doing that. So we'll
I
see where
think we
this
should. It's
goes.
a good way to keep ourselves organized.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice to see how things flowed across the decades since the show
Right.
began. Kyle MacLachlan, of course, hosted the first episode of season 16 of Saturday Night Live.
Oh, wow.
And this was during, I want to say, the third great age of SNL. We had the original, of course, with Aykroyd, Belushi, Gilda Radner, etc. And
Hmm.
then we had, of course, the Eddie Murphy, Joe Piscopo years,
Which,
which kind of dovetailed into Billy Crystal and Martin Short.
right, which then went into what I think starts one of the best eras, which is when we get Dana Carvey, Nora
Yep,
Dunn, Phil Hartman,
yep,
John Lovitz,
yep.
which to me was the
Jan,
second coming of
Jan Hooks.
Jan Hook's one of the greatest comedic actors to ever grace the face of the earth.
And yes, she's in that
And
the sketch. So and
yes, she is.
Mike Myers, and yeah, so lots of
And as much as I am not a huge fan of the Dennis Miller or the
right.
Victoria Jackson anymore.
Yeah, that shine has kind of gone off a little
Yes.
bit as apparently they've gone off the deep end in recent years.
They
Yes,
have kind of gone off the deep end. Now, Victoria Jackson always was
right.
kind of conservative, but Dennis Miller went kind of crazy.
Yeah,
So I was looking for something.
it's kind of disturbing how so many cast members from the era are like just went completely like hardcore MAGA.
Just right, which I think is. I always think that's strange for actors
Right.
because
You would kind of like to think they would be more open minded.
you would think that, but also the conservative parties don't usually give a lot of what's the word I'm looking for. They don't have a lot of what seems to me to be a lot of respect for creative endeavors.
Right.
You know, it's not who.
It's just
I
that
mean, they're,
you
they're
would think
kind of
being artsy, creative people, they would be more
right.
artsy and creative. Yeah.
Usually, it's conservative
Yeah.
representatives who are the first to recommend cutting music programs in schools, cutting theater programs in
Right.
schools, things like that. So that's why it always surprises me, cutting art programs or downsizing library funding. So that's why it always surprises me when creative types are so conservative, because it feels like a conflict of interest to me, that this is your livelihood and you're backing a party that does not seem to respect the value of your livelihood.
Right.
So that surprises me too.
Yeah. It
But
does seem like kind of a conflict of interest, doesn't it?
yes.
All
But
right.
this was 1990 was the sort of passing. We started to begin to pass the torch of that classic like 86 to 1990 cast that I
Yeah.
just mentioned.
Right.
Because this episode was the first SNL appearance of Chris Farley.
Was it? I didn't
Yes,
realize this was his
it was
first episode.
it was the first episode with Chris Farley,
And
and
he
we
does a
had
great job, by the way, as
fantastic.
Leo Johnson.
Yes, and you could imagine.
Leo the murderer of Laura Palmer Johnson.
Yes, in this, and I love that in this sketch.
Yes.
If you had been watching Twin Peaks, it almost seemed like they were giving it away because the show was really going in the direction that you thought it was Leo.
Yeah.
They were really, really thinking it was Leo.
Because this is like only 8 episodes in. That's all we
Right,
had in the first season. Remember?
right,
So
exactly. So there was
there wasn't a lot to really grab onto for theories.
no, not yet.
And
But this one
Leo was the main
Leo was the
douche,
one.
the main douche
Yeah, Leo was.
character on the show. So he was perfect. He was the Chad
And
of his day.
He was the Chad of his day, exactly. And Twin Peaks Chad, not incel Chad. I would like to again
right.
make that distinction. So we had this is Chris Farley's first appearance on Saturday Night Live was this episode. This is when he first started. Mike Myers was in the cast by that point.
Right.
Kevin Nealon was in the cast by this point, and soon we were going to start adding people like David Spade and Adam Sandler. So this was a good era of mixing of classic to new.
Yep.
So this was a good time, I think, to be watching SNL.
And here's a fun trivia bit. Somebody turns up as Deputy Andy Brennan in this sketch that, looking back, you'll be like, oh my God, he was in this sketch? He was on SNL? Conan O'Brien. You know, maybe you've heard of him.
Was it Conan?
Conan O'Brien, yes. Because he used to be a writer and bit player on SNL back in the day.
I guess I wasn't watching close enough because I thought that was Jay Moore.
Nope, that's Conan O'Brien.
Is it Conan? Okay.
You can tell because of his height. He's especially tall.
Oh, that's true. Yes, because Conan is like 6'5".
Yeah. So
that is very
so
true.
If you want
and he doesn't say anything. So
no. He just kind of nods along when Chris Farley's Leo is showing him pictures of the murder of him murdering Laura Palmer. He's like,
"Here's me about to kill her.
Yep.
Here's me killing her." And he's just back there nodding, which is strange because were that actually Deputy Andy Brennan,
right?
He'd be crying.
Probably.
Don't tell Harry I didn't cry, but Lucy, it's so horrible.
Yep. Don't tell Harry I didn't cry. I didn't cry.
I saw in the background. I thought it was Jay Moore. Oh well.
Yep. Nope. That's Conan O'Brien. So yeah, pretty cool. Little trivia bit there, obviously. So we started off. We got an opening monologue.
I love the monologue.
Yeah, you love this. Do you want to run this down, or do you?
Yes, Kyle MacLachlan was host of the show and came out, and his monologue was, hi, I'm Kyle MacLachlan. You may have known me from Twin Peaks or possibly Blue Velvet, but I think a lot of you probably don't know much about me, so I'll just open it up to some questions. And so the audience is asking questions like, how do you actually pronounce your last name? And we find out it's MacLachlan and it's Scottish.
Yep.
Which we can come back to later about this episode. And then the final question is somebody says, well, this is not so much a question about you, but I'm a big Twin Peaks fan. And I was wondering if next season, are we going to ever find out who actually killed Laura Palmer? And he just, without missing a beat, says, yeah, it's Shelley the waitress. And that's revealed in episode 5. And you'll find that out. So, okay, next. And then you hear over the PA system, Kyle, there's a phone call for you. So he leaves his monologue and goes back into the control room, and someone hands him a phone and says, it's David Lynch.
Yep.
And you hear somebody on the other end of the phone who I am pretty sure is Phil Hartman.
Going.
He's like, what do you mean, David? It's Shelley. The episode's been shot. I mean, they're going to find out. I mean, what? All right, well, I've been in the business for 6 years, David. You know that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. And then he comes back out and he says that, I just want to make sure that earlier when I told that joke about Shelley, that you just all realized that it was a joke because, somebody would have to be a real idiot if they ever wanted to work in this business again to do something like that. So he kind of backpedals on it. And as we all know, of course, that it was not Shelley, nor was it Leo.
Nope.
But those were the theories they had at the time. And I remember watching this episode and thinking in my head along the lines of Wallace Shawn's thought pattern in The Princess Bride when he's trying to figure out which of the wine glasses is poisoned.
Right. That just the kind of stalling for time, but also trying to think out, like try to get Wesley to give up which one is the real glass.
Right. Or just trying to figure out, okay, what's more clever?
Yeah.
To have it be Shelley and say it's not, to throw us off the scent, so when we watch it we're even more surprised? Or is Shelley the absolute opposite person, and therefore
you start second guessing everything?
Right. The person who is, okay, so if you have Shelley, who's the most opposite from Shelley? probably Leo. And then later in the show, we have Leo as the killer. So is it Leo? But since they did both of them, is it neither of them? Or did they do it together? Or does Shelley know that Leo did it? My brain just went on this big, long thing.
Wait till
And then,
I get going.
yeah, exactly. And then, and then you finally
Truly,
pick
you
one.
have a dizzying intellect.
And so then you finally pick one, and you realize it's neither,
Right.
because both were poisoned with iocane powder.
Yep.
And then
Now I
it's
want to
just,
see a Princess Bride Twin Peaks mashup.
that would be pretty amazing. I recently watched The Princess Bride
Yeah.
because I was never a huge fan of it because I was shown it for the first time by two huge fans of it who would not stop quoting it during the movie. Now,
Yes.
quoting, I'm all for quoting. I'm a quoter. But you've got to let someone watch it first before you get into it with them.
Right.
And because of that, I was just sort of like, this movie.
I can't get into it because you idiots won't shut up.
Yeah, it's just, if you could just let me do this once. There were a lot of things I liked about it, but I never became like a huge, for being a nerdy female of my age, Xan, nerd, 40-something years old, obviously a Princess Bride fan,
Right.
but I never really was until recently. I watched the HBO documentary on Andre the Giant,
Yeah.
and I thought, I should give that another shot. And it just happened to be on TV recently, and I watched the whole thing, and I'm like, this is a fabulous movie.
So now it clicks for you.
It clicks a little bit more for me,
Yeah.
and some of the things that I always love the Fred Savage parts, things
Right.
like that. But that scene where Wallace Shawn's trying to really figure it out, no matter what he does, he's gonna be wrong, and that was what I kind of figured as well too. That all of this thing, I'm probably wrong on all of it.
Right.
But I remember thinking, like, is that who this is gonna be? What?
Yeah, we were like, you were watching this episode hoping for clues.
Right.
Like maybe something will slip out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
And
that
somebody
was
obviously had to tell the writers of Saturday Night Live, well, we can do whatever we want as long as you don't say that
Right.
Leland Palmer killed Laura Palmer, and don't ask me why you can't say that.
yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And you're just using that as like, well, okay, I guess I can eliminate this character off the suspect list.
Right.
Like
right.
you've got your little sheet of clue, and you're just checking things off. Like, okay, I've got this card.
Right. It's not the ballroom.
Yep, check.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're just eliminating it. Then, of course, we had the big Twin Peaks sketch. 8 minutes and 50 seconds, this sketch.
So excellent.
And worth every minute, in my opinion.
Worth every second of it, yeah.
So
the basics around this sketch are that Cooper doesn't want to leave Twin Peaks.
Right.
And so he's going to ignore all evidence that proves the case has been solved.
Right.
Just so he can stay there in Twin Peaks. So obviously this is before he was suspended from the Bureau and not just already on the police force anyway.
Yes.
So he starts out talking to Diane about how he had 15 donuts today. And
all of them jelly.
All of them jelly. I'll be injecting my insulin in 15 minutes.
Yep.
And took a shower, found 6 hairs, 4 curly, 2 straight.
Yep.
Just all of the minutia that he winds up telling Diane, and then Harry comes in.
I've got to find out what kind of sheets these are. They're really something. And it's like, I'm damn fine sheets. I'm gonna get naked and slide around in them.
Get naked and slide around in them. Not satin.
Not cotton.
Not
rayon. Silky.
Silky. Yep. Damn fine sheet. So then Harry comes in. Harry is, of course, played by Kevin Nealon.
Yep.
And by the way, out of everything we're talking about today, this is going to be the easiest one that you can find because it is on the Gold Box DVD.
Right.
So a lot of these you have to go to YouTube to find them unless you have the DVDs. But this one is on Gold Box. So if we can tell you where we know that they are, we will.
I was kind of disappointed this wasn't brought over for the Blu-ray set.
Tell me about it, because now I have to keep the Gold Box and the Blu-ray set.
Right. Well, I was going to keep it anyway because I've got all my, back when it was on DVD and then all this, as I've picked up everything, I've kept everything just as a Twin Peaks collector. But
I was doing that for a while, but then it just got
Space.
and let's just be honest, it was Star Wars that broke me. You
Star
know,
Wars.
video the original, video the re-releases, Laserdisc the re-releases. But like, how many times
Yep.
have I bought Star Wars in my life? You know, when people joke,
Right.
you know that joke in Men in Black
Yep.
where he holds up that tiny little disc. He said, "This is a new thing. It's about to replace CDs soon, which means I'm going to have to buy the White Album again."
Yep.
That's sort of the joke that people say. I'm going to have to buy the White Album again. No, for me, I'm going to have to buy Star Wars again because I've owned Star Wars for every possible incarnation of home video that's been out there. So after a while, unless there's something unique about it, I've gotten rid of it. And
Good for you.
past, I haven't thrown it out. I've either passed it along or taken it to Half Price Books, something like that. So,
So somebody else can enjoy it. Yeah.
So somebody else can enjoy it, exactly.
Good.
So now I have to keep the gold box and the Blu-ray set.
Yeah.
So, so yes, Kevin Nealon comes in and he's playing Sheriff Harry S. Truman. And he says, "Great news, Cooper. We found out who killed Laura Palmer, and it's Leo Johnson." And in walks Chris Farley, dressed up as Leo. Basically, jeans, flannel, and a dark ponytail. He's like, "That's right, I did it. I killed her. Get me a beer." You know,
Yeah. that delivery he has of "Get me a beer," and he pointed.
Yeah.
It wasn't a straight on version of Eric Dare, but it works so well.
It was Chris Farley.
And with Farley, it showed his talent there that he pulled that off so well. And it's like he stole that scene right there.
I adored Chris Farley. I absolutely adored Chris Farley. To the point where I will admit this to all my Twin Peaks friends out there, I had a bit of a crush on Chris Farley.
Ooh.
And yeah, I did. He has his own style of things.
That's an unusual crush, though.
That's an unusual crush, but I like funny guys. So
okay.
And he had that cute smile, and just when he would do do you remember the Chris Farley show?
Yeah.
Where he would talk to somebody famous and he would just be so starstruck he wouldn't know what to say. And my favorite one was when he was talking to Paul McCartney and he said, "Do you remember when you were with the Beatles?"
Right.
That was awesome. just because there's something endearing about
the kind of starstruck, yeah.
Yes, and he would do this thing where he would like quickly move his head around like he was some sort of suspicious chicken.
Yeah.
And he did that a lot as Leo as well, and I love that. And then apparently Conan O'Brien, which I totally didn't recognize with that dark hair, it looked like Jay Moore to me.
Right.
Is Andy. So Cooper is saying, "Good work, Harry. That's another great clue." He totally ignores
We've got another piece of the puzzle. It won't be long now.
And Coop, he did it. He confessed.
Yeah, we've got the videotape.
He's got videotape. He's got photos, and they says, Hawk's going to take us out. And what is the line about taking Hawk taking them out in the woods? I forget exactly how that goes.
Oh, you mean them going out to the One-Eyed Jacks disguised as Indians? Like Hawk said, we could borrow his buckskin. With the one with the eagle feather.
Oh, the eagle feather.
Yeah.
No, Cooper, it's over. Yeah. And then he says, I had a dream, Harry. And then he says, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to throw this rock at the window. If it breaks, Leo is innocent.
Yes.
And of course,
they throw the rock.
Yeah.
And
then so they go through all of this stuff and they finally convince Cooper that this case is over.
And while this is going on, all these different characters come in and out of the sketch.
They all come in and out of the sketch.
We have Phil Hartman as Leland Palmer, which is perfection.
Who is absolutely amazing. Yeah, he does a fantastic Ray Wise impression, especially when he starts crying and then putting his hands on his eyes. And
the moment that cracks me up is when he's like he's looking like he's got his hands out and he's like looking up at Cooper or whatever, and he's like, "Dance with me."
Dance with me? Yes.
In that really sad, tragic way that Ray Wise does it, it cracks me up every time.
It was perfect. And then Victoria Jackson comes in. She's dressed like Audrey Horne.
That was a great scene.
And she says that she's just came to say goodbye because she heard that Leo had confessed, and she got Agent Cooper a present.
She quit her job at the perfume counter.
Yes, he asked her if she has any leads from her job at the perfume
Yeah.
counter. She said, I quit that job after Leo confessed.
Yeah.
And she said, I just wanted to say goodbye, and here's a present. I just have to finish wrapping it. So she takes about an 8-inch strand of just regular
Ribbon. Red
ribbon,
ribbon. Yeah.
red ribbon, puts it in her mouth, and then they do like a cut to him looking at her
Yep.
and a cut to her looking like she's
It's
maneuvering it.
very cleverly edited. This.
Very cleverly edited. And then then they pan back and you see both of them, and she sticks her tongue out, and it's a bow, like
Yep.
one of those stick-on bows.
Stick-on bows that you put on a present. Yeah, and then it's like a Christmas present or something. And
Uh-huh.
it was done so well, and
Yeah,
the audience applauds because it was just executed perfectly.
and the audience doesn't
A
let
total
on.
a
They
total
can
nod
see
of course Audrey with her cherry stem nod.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So then Audrey leaves, and then Nadine Hurley comes in,
Yep.
which is Jan Hooks.
Yep.
And by this point, Nora Dunn had left the show because she was sort of on
Well, that
Lorne
was
Michaels.
yeah, that was fallout from the Sinead O'Connor.
Well, Sinead O'Connor did the same thing.
Yeah.
What happened is that Nora Dunn refused to be on the episode that was hosted by Andrew Dice Clay,
Right.
and Sinead O'Connor refused to perform. So I forget who they had to get as the musical guest, and then Nora Dunn wasn't on that episode, and that was actually very funny. They did a parody of this of It's a Wonderful Life,
Yep.
where they have an angel talking to a suicidal Andrew Dice Clay, and he says, "Let me show you what would have happened if you hadn't hosted Saturday Night Live." And then you see a pair of feet coming out of like a giant speaker amp. He said, "Oh my God, what happened?" He said, "That's Nora Dunn. She was crushed to death by one of Sinead O'Connor's speakers because you weren't here." And so anyway, Nora Dunn had kind of been on Lorne Michaels' naughty list for a little bit, and she had wound up leaving the show. And so there was Victoria Jackson and there was Jan Hooks, and those were the only two female cast members on the
Right.
show. And some of the other people hadn't come in, like Melanie Hutzel wasn't there yet. Some of those 90s people weren't there yet. So Nadine comes in and says, Agent Cooper, make sure you get my Draper Renner to the patent office in Washington. That is all.
That is
she
all.
runs away.
Yeah.
She runs away. And so
Cooper,
they, again,
and Cooper's there with the drapery runners in his hand. Like he
Holding
doesn't know
there.
what to do with them. Yeah, just holding them.
so he's figuring out that he can't keep this on any longer, that this is over. And he says, well, wait a minute, Harry, we still haven't heard from the log lady. Coop, you're not going to hear from the log lady. Well, why not? And then there's a pause, and Kevin Nealon says, because we only have 2 women left on Saturday Night Live, and we just used them both up.
Yep.
And then everybody
The audience breaks up at that.
And then as they're breaking up, Jan Hooks comes running in,
Yeah.
holding a log, dressed like the log lady.
Like she just threw on a stocking cap and got her log and her glasses.
Right, she took her stocking cap and glasses and grabbed and runs in, and she's obviously out of breath. She's like, "It's Cooper. My log says Leo did it. That's all I gotta go." So
That was great. Yeah.
they're making a joke at their own cast as well as the as well as.
And I like McLaughlin's response to that. Harry, this town never ceases to amaze me.
So finally, he acquiesces and says, "Okay, well, it's Leo. I guess this case is over."
Yep.
And so they leave, and he starts to get ready for bed.
Right.
And then the lights go down, and then you get the Audrey's dance music coming in, and then in comes Mike Myers,
Right.
dressed as the man from another place.
And obviously, he's not a little man, so he's doing this like he's a full-size adult. But he's squatting down.
He's sort of squatting down with his knees kind of outward.
Yes. Yes.
Trying to seem smaller, and so he's doing a good job of trying to talk like Twin Peaks people, but without the
Well, he just kind of says he says kind of gibberish. He's like going
right.
like he's trying to talk backwards, even though it's not. Yeah, it's not backwards reversed.
I think he's just trying to come across as sounding like he's from the lodge, and they have the
But they give him subtitles. So
they subtitles for him, and then
heard about Leo confessing tough break.
Tough break, yes. And then Cooper asks him if he wants to go and get a piece of pie, and he says, "Do you think they have little pies?"
Right.
He's like, my friend, I've got a feeling they do. And then Cooper decides that he just wants to stay in by himself to call it a night, and no hard feelings. And so Cooper goes to bed, and the man from another place starts snapping his fingers and dancing, and there we have it.
Yep. And that's it. So yeah, it's pretty awesome sketch. And if you haven't seen this sketch, and if you haven't, what's wrong with you? Go check out the sketch because it's great. If nothing else, go to YouTube. It's on YouTube, folks.
Yeah, go to YouTube. Go to Half Price Books. Buy the gold box.
Yeah. Once you actually watch this sketch on YouTube, you probably want to go out, track down the gold box so you have a good copy of it.
Because it is the Saturday Night Live thing, and NBC is very vigilant when it comes to YouTube.
Right.
So you can't always find it on YouTube. Well, and I have the SNL app.
Yeah.
And the monologue is on there.
Right.
And All Things Scottish is on there, but not the Twin Peaks stuff.
Well, I can offer a little bit of a suggestion. Chances are you may not find it on YouTube. But go to Dailymotion. Because all the stuff that gets taken off of YouTube is usually still on Dailymotion.
Usually still on Dailymotion, or you can just Google it,
right,
and you'll find it embedded in someone's blog.
Because a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about here in this episode is stuff that I rewatched over the past week on using Dailymotion. Because all that obscure stuff that, for whatever reason, for copyright or whatnot, was taken off of YouTube. So, little tip for you.
And the rest of this, I wish that, you know how they have those best of Saturday Night Live. I wish this was on DVD somewhere because I loved this episode in general.
I loved that whole episode. I
should check iTunes and see if I can buy this whole episode. But
I would love a season set of this era.
Yeah, seriously.
Because I have them with the original cast.
And they've gone up through, I think, season 5, but I'm not. I think.
Yeah, they have all but not a lot of the. They have mostly after that point. It's the best ofs.
The best ofs, and so because this sketch also has the first All Things Scottish sketch, which of course is if it's not Scottish, it's crap.
Yep, you love that sketch.
That's a great one. I just love it when the woman comes in asking for a leprechaun for her boyfriend, and he says, and Kyle MacLachlan says, leprechauns are from Ireland. She's like, oh, Irish Scottish is the same thing. And Mike Myers comes running out with a giant map. Oh, it's the same thing, isn't it? Here's Scotland, here's Ireland, there's the bloody sea. Now get out! And he just screams at her. And then there's an episode of Sprockets.
Now, the Sprockets sketch I love. The Sprockets.
And what I love about this episode...
He plays like a character named... No. Mike Myers plays a character named Dieter.
And he's the host of not all things of Sprockets,
right?
And it's basically a talk show host.
Like it's German. It's basically like just that 80s kind of new wave German like type show. Like you'd have it find out like a German MTV.
It's like if Kraftwerk had a talk show. This is what it would look like.
That's a good analogy.
So, because it's very stereotypical German 80s. And Kyle MacLachlan plays a character who is the director of Germany's most beloved sitcom called Who Are You to Accuse Me?
Right.
I think it's pretty hilarious.
Now, keep in mind, MacLachlan has his like hair kind of like a wig on where he's like has a black mohawk with these like thin black sunglasses.
It's like half mohawk and then it's like half like just goes down the side of his
a comb over or something, and then he's in a big like studded leather jacket, like a punk jacket.
And then of course at the end, which is the time on Sprockets Wenn wir dance.
Yep.
He does this great dance where he just like moves around like this and then moves his arms up and then moves it out, and then it's like some sort of Kyle MacLachlan version of the robot. It's fantastic.
Right.
And then there's another sketch that I was looking for this earlier, and I wish I knew what I did with this. There was an episode, a sketch where Kyle MacLachlan was a cowboy out on the range at night singing songs by the fire.
I dimly remember this one, yeah.
And the song is basically, go to sleep, little doggies, because you're going to be meat tomorrow. Like, it was a terrible song. And I remember as a kid watching that, and I had written those lyrics down. Right. And I had written them down in a back of the book of music, and I don't know where that book of music is. And I thought I had it, but I don't, and I don't know where it is, and it's driving me crazy. So I must have gotten rid of it, but I didn't realize I did. And at the very end of that sketch, he says, he stops singing, he looks in the camera, and he says, "I'm Katie Lang. Thank you." Which is really funny because Kyle MacLachlan and Katie Lang look a lot alike.
Yes, they do. Facial structure.
They have facial structure similar. They have the same dark hair. They have they've had similar hairstyles, and they both have kind of a gap in their teeth in the same place. So just the fact that he was like, "I'm Katie Lang. Thank you."
That's funny.
I thought it was pretty hilarious.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, this was a really good episode overall.
Yeah, you definitely need to track this down. It's great.
Yep.
Totally worth it.
Yep.
All right. Next thing I want to talk about. This actually predates the SNL sketch by a month.
Is it just by a month? Oh, that's
just
cool.
So Northern Exposure. Now, this Northern Exposure, for those who remember back in the 90s, was where a lot of Twin Peaks refugees went looking for that next quirky show to kind of latch onto when Twin Peaks either wasn't on the air like it was during the summer. This was, remember, Northern Exposure when it debuted was like a summer replacement series.
Mm-hmm. So when we had the cancellation of Twin Peaks before the letter writing campaign brought it back,
right?
And after Twin Peaks went off the air, we still had Northern Exposure, and we were sort of, figuratively walking around, just in a daze looking for something else to latch onto,
right?
Because and then we thought we were going to have it on the air, but that only lasted 5 episodes.
Yeah.
And so, but we had Northern Exposure. So Northern Exposure was the quirky show about a weird town that was more of a comedy and a little more accessible to everyone else.
And that lasted about 6 seasons. So yeah,
it did, and it was where a lot of Twin Peaks people went for their quirky TV after that.
Yeah.
So
this episode, which is just the show's 5th episode ever, it's called Russian Flu, and it came out in August 8th, 1990, and the main Twin Peaks reference in this episode, there's a bit toward the end, very end of the episode, where Holling Vincourt takes Joel Fleischman, played by Rob Morrow, and his then fiancée, the character Elaine, to Snoqualmie Falls, yes, where the Great Northern sits. They go up to like this kind of like observatory tower type thing where they can look out, like a lookout tower, and they're basically takes them there as a tour, and they're like appreciating the beauty and whatnot, and then all of a sudden there's this kind of Angelo Badalamenti like music playing that comes over. They start hearing jazz music and the snapping of fingers. And Joel,
that can only mean one thing.
And Joel and Elaine start snapping along with the beat. And Holling asks Joel if he wants some coffee or donuts. Joel asks Holling, "Well, do you happen to have some cherry pie?"
Oh, see? We all know what that means.
Right. And then Elaine starts looking through this lookout telescope. And she asks Joel, "What's that lady holding?" And then the camera kind of slowly zooms in, all Lynch style, onto the circular end of the telescope until it becomes completely black from being such an extreme close-up. Joel replies, "Looks like a log to me."
So good.
So that's a great little nod there. So
that's a good one. And this, oddly enough, Northern Exposure also has a Shelley the waitress, who I think is a great character.
Right.
So, yes, Shelley the waitress, who works at the Brick, which is the bar, who is owned by Holling. He's significantly older than her, but they are married, and they are one of the most adorable couples on television. To this day, I still think they're a fantastic couple. And Holling, who is played by John Cullum.
Yes.
I think, and this is a weird thing to say, and you tell me if you think I'm crazy on this one. I think it's mostly his nose. He's got a very pointy nose,
like a Patrick Stewart kind of hawk nose.
Kind of, yeah. I think, but he has really big eyes.
Right.
I think that if the Count from Sesame Street were a real guy, he would look like John Cullum. For some reason, I always thought he looked like the Count to me. So I thought that if
2, 3,
yeah, if he was real, that would be who played him. Would be John Cullum.
That's funny.
But yeah, this is a this
Yeah.
this had a great cast.
I mean, just they referenced so much pop culture in this show, and it was just
Mhm.
throughout the series. You had this one kind of Chinook character named Ed Chigliak,
Yes,
and
played by
he was
Darren Burroughs.
right, and he was a film student, so you had lots of film references.
There was an
He
episode.
like idolized Martin Scorsese, and so
Mhm.
you had a lot of Martin Scorsese references. And
One of our favorite characters on the show was Marilyn, who
yes,
uh, was Dr. Fleischman, Rob Morrow's characters. Basically, the premise of this show
yes,
is Rob Morrow was one of those guys who got his medical school funding from a private citizen on the proviso that once he graduated, he would come be like a bush doctor or
yeah.
small town doctor. He would come to that small
They
town
pay
and
yeah they pay for his schooling, and then he ends up getting like brought in, um,
right.
and
Maurice,
as
who was
only
like
yeah, he's
the
basically
town millionaire, played by Barry Corbin
who's a
from
former
War
astronaut.
Games.
Yeah, former
Yes, former
astronaut.
astronaut.
Yep.
He funded his medical school, so now he has to come to Sicily, Alaska,
Yeah.
and be a doctor. And
He's
he's
kind of
kind of a,
like an indentured servant.
yeah, and he's kind of a big baby about it, but then he sort of grows to
Well,
like the
because
town.
he's from New York, and he's like,
Right.
just used to all that, the city life, and so he's obviously when he goes there, he's all snobbish about everything,
Right. It's like the furthest opposite you can
and
get from
he is
anything.
like just a whiny bitch about it, the whole thing.
He is a big baby about
Yeah.
it. So, but then there's a lot of seasons of will they won't they sexual tension with Maggie O'Connell, who plays the pilot
Yep.
that flies people from this place to the
Yeah.
mainland, because they're not like in Juneau,
Yeah.
Alaska. They're like in one of those islandy things.
Yeah. Janine Turner, and yeah, I had a
Uh-huh.
big crush on her back in the day.
Janine Turner, and so they have kind of a David and Maddie
Yeah.
thing going on.
It was a very moonlighting, like, will they or won't they? You're right.
Yeah, it was kind of a love hate, definitely a love
Yeah.
hate thing, like in not like a Jim and Pam where they obviously like each other, but more like a David and Matt
Yeah, they would
and
just bicker all the time,
yeah,
but
they bicker and
that bickering had sexual chemistry
it
undertones.
would turn into flirting and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
um,
And then of course they hook up, and then they don't. And yeah,
there was one episode where Ed, the filmmaker, and Ed would always, when he would look at something that he thought was particularly beautiful or meaningful, he would always hold his hands up like that to see what it
yes,
would look like on a movie screen.
like he's framing in the
Like he's
image.
framing it. Yeah, he would
Yeah,
hold his hands up in a frame. And there was one episode where he wanted to do something in a movie where he launched a cow from a catapult.
well, no, that was Chris. That was Chris Stevens, the DJ. Chris had the vision of like launching this cow, and then he gets all upset because Ed points out, well, that was from Monty Python.
Is that what it was? Yeah. And
Yes,
he's so sad. So what they do is they launch the old player piano that doesn't
yes,
work at the anymore.
yeah. 'Cause, well,
And that
there was a
piano,
there was a fire,
yeah.
and then
And when that piano lands, it makes
yeah,
the funniest sound.
it's
I don't know why.
and they shoot it this catapult launching this piano, this old player piano, and it's shot in slow motion. So it just you see it going through the air, and then when it crashes, it's just this slow mo destruction of the
Right.
piano as it hits the earth. It's beautiful.
And I don't know if you heard Charles say John Corbett.
Yes.
He's
Yeah. John Corbett.
anybody who's sexually attracted to men, John Corbett is where you want to be. I was in a Shakespeare literature class
Chris
in
in
high
the
school.
morning.
Chris
Yes.
in the morning, baby.
Chris.
He's always going to be Chris in the
Yep.
morning to me.
Yep.
I don't care how many seasons he was on Sex and the City. He's Chris
Right.
in the morning.
He's Chris in the morning. Yep.
So I was in a Shakespeare class in high school, and our teacher would always try and make whatever they were talking about relatable to the day. And he was trying to talk about a heartthrob, and he said, "Now who's the guy that's on TV that all the girls like these days?" And I just said John Corbett, and all the girls in the class were like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Now who's that?" And I said, "Chris in the Morning on Northern Exposure." And the girls who didn't know his name were like, "Oh yeah, that guy." Like everybody was in
Right.
agreement that
That's
he
funny.
is just dreamy as all get the hell out. So I am not going to lie to you that I have seen a lot of Sex in the City, and it is mostly because of him.
That's funny.
So yeah.
That's funny.
So yeah, Northern Exposure is a great show. If you haven't
And
seen
I
it on
have
TV,
yeah, you definitely have to check out Northern Exposure, but yeah, I could definitely see why You might be a little fond of Mr. Corbett.
Mr. Chris in the Morning,
Yeah.
baby. Yep.
Yep.
Good times.
Good times. Yes.
And he's one of those guys. You know how there are some guys who, when they have long hair, they're like really good looking, but then they cut their hair off and it's like
Yeah.
they lose all their superpowers.
Not him.
Not John Corbett.
No, no. There's later it like depends on the episode because sometimes Chris has his hair really long and greasy, or sometimes he has it like cut really short.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't. Yeah, I can see that.
Still dreamy.
I was
Yeah,
like,
you take a Tom.
and I'm going, you son of a bitch.
You're
F
taking
you.
all the girls.
F
You're
you.
saying it. All you had to do, Charles, was be a felonious DJ.
Yeah,
That's all you needed.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Prone to stealing stuff, and
exactly. That was
yeah.
the thing. He was a convicted felon
Right.
who was now in Alaska trying to live the honest life. So, but you take a Tom Hiddleston, cut off his hair, loses his superpowers. You take a Viggo Mortensen, you cut off his hair,
Yep.
he loses his superpowers. Not a John Corbett.
Apparently not Chris Hemsworth.
No, not Chris Hemsworth. That's true. I think Chris Hemsworth's best looking role is Ghostbusters. I think he's adorable in that.
All right, so we should probably move on because I could talk Northern Exposure all day. So that's because I love that
This
show.
is how convinced I am of Homer Simpson's guilt that I am willing to waste the court's time ranking the super hunks.
Hilarious.
And I say that quote, Charles, because what's next on our list?
Well, actually, there's a couple things first.
That's right.
Real quick.
That's right.
All right, so next thing I have on my list, Sesame Street.
Proof that children's television is written with the parents in mind.
Yeah. So, February 26, 1991, they had a segment that was pretty popular on the show called Monsterpiece Theater, which was a great send-up of Masterpiece Theater hosted by Cookie Monster.
No. Hosted by Alistair Cookie.
Alistair Cookie, you're right. Thank you.
Yes, for those of you
I'm
old enough
I'm glad
to
you
remember,
remember. I'm glad you remembered that.
Henson Fanatic.
This is Alistair Cookie.
Welcome to Masterpiece Theater.
Yes.
So for those of you who remember Masterpiece Theater from the 70s and 80s
Yes,
on PBS,
Yeah.
it was hosted by a gentleman by the name of Alistair Cook.
Right. He did a lot of documentaries and stuff. And
Yes, he did. And it started out, panning through this, study library of all this classic literature. And it kind of ends on a leather-bound book that says Masterpiece Theater.
Right.
And this does the same thing, but it ends on Monsterpiece Theater. And all throughout the study are plates of cookies. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So this particular segment featured a sketch called Twin Beaks.
Twin Beaks.
And
Birds in a diner.
Yep. So you basically have lots of like Muppet birds in this sketch, but Cookie Monster plays Special Agent Cookie.
Special Agent Dale Cookie. Yeah.
And there's so he's got his tape recorder and he's recording a report for Diane, enjoying some darn fine pie.
Yes.
Not damn fine pie, but
darn fine pie. Yeah.
darn fine pie. You gotta sanitize a little for the kids.
These are the kids.
These are the kiddies. All right. So he interviews this waitress, and who of course looks a nod to Shelley the waitress. Fellow patron David Finch.
Which I love.
Which is a great, nice pun.
And that's what this, most Sesame Street sketches are teaching a lesson.
Yes.
And this one is teaching you about rhyming.
Right. And the log bird.
The log bird.
And get some valuable direction from Laura, who whispers in his ear.
I love that. And like I said, there is no way, if in 1991 you were letting your Sesame Street aged child watch Twin Peaks, one of two things was going on. It was past their bedtime and they were just being cranky.
Right.
Or they were bored out of their mind. Like, I don't necessarily think, I think often parents are more concerned about their kids watching something they shouldn't be.
Right.
Because I remember being a kid watching dramas like that and being bored out of my gourd.
Yeah.
At that stuff. So I don't think it would have necessarily. Now the movie I think would scare kids, but the TV show I don't think was necessarily scary. And unless Bob shows up,
Yeah, I was
right?
gonna say Bob traumatized you as an adult, so yeah.
Bob traumatizes me to this day.
Exactly. I know
Oh,
I can't even break out the Bob Funko because it'll scare you.
don't even threaten to do that. That's not
I'm
nice.
not threatening. It's all good. It's all
So
good. Relax. But
so this is obviously not something kids are going to get, but they are obviously knowing that the parents are watching and the parents are catching this.
but credit to Sesame Street. How hip is Sesame Street back then when they're like trotting out Twin Peaks references
Sesame Street is extremely hip
and
and literate,
contemporary?
and they have their finger on the pulse
Uh,
of the current culture. And I
apparently,
think that's probably, now that I'm thinking about this,
yeah.
I have said before, and I said this on our last episode, that I like to know what's going on. Even if I'm not a big fan of it, I like to know what's going on. And it's probably because of a lesson that subconsciously was taught to me by Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Um, Monsterpiece Theater itself was hilarious. One of my other favorite episode of Monsterpiece Theater
Yeah.
was called Me Claudius.
Right.
And it was
Because Cookie Monster obviously substitutes the word me for I.
right,
Right.
right. So basically, Me Claudius was a bunch of monsters
Yeah.
in togas coming up to each other and going,
Toga.
Me
Toga.
Claudius. And
Yeah.
then another one would come up going, No, me Claudius. Like it was this argument
Right.
over who was Claudius. And of course that goes on for like 5 minutes. And as a kid, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And as a parent who has probably, sat through I Claudius during Pledge Week like 6 times by this point, it's hilarious.
That's funny. All right. So yeah, you definitely want to check this one out.
Yeah. And this one is
If
on YouTube.
yeah, so this will make you. If this one doesn't make you smile,
You're dead.
something's wrong with you. Yeah, you
You're
got
dead.
because
Yeah.
it's adorable. Next one I have Darkwing Duck, episode 44, which was also called Twin Peaks.
Also, well, ducks, birds,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
and this came out just like a year later, February 10th, 1992. This was out, and so we've got obviously some various Twin Peaks references here. Um, this is a show that was on the Disney Channel.
Was
That
it on the Disney Channel?
it was on the Disney Channel.
Okay, couldn't remember.
Yeah. Um, but obviously, back when DuckTales and all this other stuff was on too.
This was the early to mid '90s when there
Yeah,
was.
I don't know. They might have had this out in syndication and then aired it on Disney Channel. I don't know.
See, I want to say because I didn't have cable
Okay, so maybe it was
at this
syndication
time,
first and then
and
Disney
I
Channel.
saw it, so I think it was like on Fox or something.
Okay.
Because I know I believe that's where DuckTales was too, but I
Okay.
can't remember for
All
sure.
right,
It's
so
been a long time.
maybe it's syndication then. I didn't watch the show like I talked about with you earlier.
Right.
I watched
This was
DuckTales, but not
part.
this one.
This was part of a like animation renaissance in the early to mid '90s. You had some good Disney shows like DuckTales
Yeah.
was an excellent show, and I don't know if you've watched any of the
No,
reboot of DuckTales
no,
with
I know David Tennant's in it as Scrooge McDuck.
oh my God, he's Scrooge McDuck. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's a good show, and there were this is of course the beginning of Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, Pinky and the Brain, this kind of stuff was going on at the
I
time.
loved Pinky and the Brain. That was such a great show.
Fantastic show.
Yeah.
So Darkwing Duck was one of these, and it's an interesting one because it's like kind of a lesser known, underrated show based off of a lesser known, underrated movie character.
Right. Right.
Darkman. He's sort of based off of Darkman. He's like a Darkman, Batman kind of a character, but he's a duck, and he's got a really big hat.
See, I thought
so
it was
he's
more.
kind of
I thought it was more like a Shadow homage.
he's kind of like the Shadow. He's kind of like the Spirit. He's kind of like Batman.
Yeah.
He's kind of like
Like
Darkman.
a very pulp hero.
Right. He's a vigilante,
Yeah.
basically, and he it was an underrated show, but it definitely had its moments, and this was one of them.
Yes. So here we have we open with like an instrumental similar to the opening theme when the heroes enter Twin Peaks. And we have Launchpad McQuack's psychic investigation skills and communication with a log, which of course is like nods to Dale Cooper and the Log Lady.
Mm-hmm.
Trudy's Diner, which of course is a nod to the Double R Diner.
Yeah.
And Trudy herself is kind of like designed after Nadine Hurley with the eye patch.
Yes, yes.
So, and then we have a discovery of a wrapped in plastic corpse, of course, a nod to Laura. And they even kind of do a little shout out to Pete Martell with the "It's Bushroot, he's dead,"
Uh-huh.
followed up with "Wrapped up in plastic." And then
Yes.
later we get a nod that with the sentence, "The cows are not what they seem."
I love the cows are not what they seem. I
Yeah.
think that's fantastic.
So, is there anything else on that I missed?
I would just like to do a quick little shout out to Gosselin Mallard,
Okay.
who was voiced by the late, great Christine Cavanaugh, who, for other 90s kids out there, might remember her as Chucky from the Rugrats.
Oh, okay.
And who also was in one of my all-time favorite primetime, and when I say adult, I don't mean porn, I just mean not for kids.
Right.
Adult animated
Mature.
series. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So I'll just say primetime
Okay.
animated series. The Critic,
Yes.
which is why I will forever love
With
John Lovitz.
I was going to say John Lovitz starting that. Yep.
He had a son named Marty, and Christine Cavanaugh voiced Marty as well. She was one of the greats of female cartoon voice acting, and she is no longer with us, and so I just want to do a little shout out to her.
Oh, that's sad. Well,
Yeah.
that's too bad. All right, now we come to Xan's segment of the podcast, especially because there's a couple Simpsons episodes that reference Twin Peaks.
Couple of Simpsons episodes.
So I'm going to step aside and just let Xan run wild with this because this is her wheelhouse.
Well, and since you did the research and I am drawing a blank, what is the title of the first episode?
The first episode was, of course, Who Shot Mr. Burns, Part 2.
No, that wasn't was that the first one?
That's the first one, yes.
Well, what's the second one then? Because I thought that
Lisa Sacks.
Lisa Sacks is not before Mr. Burns.
Nope, I got the dates.
See, wow. Now, this is why you have to do the research because I think I know this stuff, and I'm obviously
that's okay.
Wrong. Okay,
let me just clarify. So Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 2 was the first episode, following up, of course, of the cliffhanger of Season 7 that aired on September 17th, 1995.
Yes, it
now,
did.
Lisa Sacks was the third episode of Season 9 that aired on October 19th, 1997.
I would have had those opposite. I would have had those the other way around.
Yep.
My goodness.
Xan learned something today.
See, this is why you do the research.
Well, this is
because
why
you're so much better at it.
This is why we complement each other.
Yes. The parts, the sum is greater than the parts for sure.
You definitely have this vast pop culture knowledge and quotes and whatnot.
Yes, I do.
I do my homework. I try to do my homework.
I have the weird little, and I try to do the homework too. I just sometimes forget, some of the stuff that is important. So there's I also have the bizarre fiddly bits of trivia. So okay, in Mr. Burns. Who shot Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Which, if you remember that time, was a phenomenon. Mr. Burns was shot after creating a gigantic sphere that blocks out the sun in Springfield. So therefore, everybody has to have the lights on all the time, making him essentially richer because power in Springfield is supplied by the nuclear power plant, which is run by Mr. Burns.
Right. And wasn't this kind of a nod to the Who Shot JR from Dallas a little bit?
Kind of, yes, where you have there was a season 4 ended with a cliffhanger.
Right.
And season 5 started up with Who Shot Mr. Burns. And throughout the summer, there were contests that you could enter to win.
To guess.
I forget what you won, but it was probably like, grand prize was like, $500,000, and like there were 10,000 small prizes where everybody got a free small Slurpee or something. I don't know what it was. But so there was a contest, and that's what people talked about over the summer. And then the episode aired, and spoiler alert, it was Maggie, the baby, who shot Mr. Burns.
And I remember everybody at the time was like, Maggie, really? That was
what? But when you look back on it now, it seems to make more sense than it did at the time.
It does.
Because as the show has progressed, Maggie is a psychopath.
She can be.
there are quite a few episodes that show
Yeah.
you that Maggie's kind of a psychopath. So
Yeah.
anyway, so it was Maggie, and they're trying to figure out who it was, and Chief Wiggum is just burning his candle at both ends trying to figure this out, and he's at the station,
Right.
and he says, "Oh, I'm starting to fall asleep. I need some coffee." And there's no coffee. He said, "Oh, well, I'll just drink this warm cream." So he takes like a little carton of cream that's been sitting out next to the
Right.
coffee maker, and he drinks it,
For who knows how long. Right.
and he falls asleep and has this hallucination.
Yes.
And he's in the
The red
he's
room.
in the Black Lodge,
Yeah.
and yeah, he's in the waiting room, and Lisa comes in, with her bag. Gee whiz, this food burns better. And what she has is a playing card,
Yep.
and what she's saying, and again we have subtitles. What she's saying is, "This suit burns better.
Right.
Look." And he's like, "I don't know what you're saying." And she's like, "Better. Look.
Yep.
Burns suit burns better. Look."
Burns
like,
his suit. Burns
burns
his
his
suit.
And she's trying everything to get him to understand it, and then he's like, "I'm still not following you." And then she just throws the card down, and she comes back to her regular voice. "Burns' suit. Look at Burns' suit." And that's where we find hair on it that has Simpson DNA, which makes him look at the Simpsons, and that's when we find out it's Maggie.
Right.
So that's how that solves that. So he comes out of it, and Eddie, one of the deputies, comes in, and he says, "Hey, Chief, we just got a lead. Oh, did you have that same dream too about the backwards talking little girl?" And then there's silence, and Eddie just says, "I'll drive."
Yeah. Great
So-
moment. Great moment.
And a little personal aside on this one.
Yeah.
This episode aired, and this was one of those, again, this is back in the day
Yep.
when people, when they were really excited for television, even if they taped it for posterity, watched TV live as it was happening. So that era of you knew everybody was doing the same thing around you was still kind of going on for some things.
Back when Nielsen ratings actually mattered.
Back when Nielsen ratings didn't just look at your DVR,
Right.
basically.
Right.
So this episode airs, and I am dying laughing. I'm watching it with my friend Steven,
Yeah.
and I'm on the floor laughing. And I pick up the phone, and I call my friend Troy, who I've talked about before on the podcast. And he also has a blog that I will link to in this. He talks about Twin Peaks quite a bit. And when Troy picks up the phone, he's laughing too. He knows it's me. There's no caller ID. He just knows it's
Right.
me.
He
right?
knows you would be calling at this moment.
I am like crying. I'm laughing so hard. And I pick up the phone, and he's laughing. And we just laugh for like a minute. And I say, "Okay, I'll call you when the show's over." He's like, "All right, bye." And that was it. That was all we did. He just knew it was me, and we both were. And I knew
you had
he was
this.
watching
You had this
it.
shared moment.
Yes, and we had this, because it was live. We were both watching it. We were
Right.
both Simpsons fans. We were both Twin Peaks fans. And next to you, Charles, he's my biggest Twin Peaks friend.
Really.
And there are times when I think he can take both of us to school. I mean, he's pretty good.
We maybe should have him on the podcast.
We might need to do that at some point.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very funny moment, and then so that was Who Killed Mr. Burns, and then a couple seasons later, which I would have sworn was earlier, and it's probably because Lisa Scaggs is a flashback episode. And what happens in Lisa Scaggs is that her saxophone gets thrown out the window and then run over by a steamroller.
Right.
Because the steamroller is going to go down a residential street with no warning. Right?
Well, it is Springfield, remember? So
It is Springfield.
Yeah.
And so, Lisa's very sad, and she's saying, my saxophone is my best friend. I've had it since before I can even remember. And Homer says, "You don't remember how you got it?" And she said no. And so then
we get the story of how she got her
we
saxophone.
get the flashback story of how she got her saxophone. Which basically they realize she's a gifted child. They have no money for private school, but they know that a musical instrument helps nurture gifted children.
Yeah.
Yes, it helps nurture development. So this is why music programs are important in schools.
Exactly.
So Homer doesn't have a lot of money, but he has just enough money for an air conditioner that he's been saving up for, or a saxophone. So at the end of the episode, we find out that there's just enough that they've saved up a lot in the air conditioner fund again,
Yep.
and there's probably enough in there for a saxophone. So again, Homer sacrifices the air conditioner to get Lisa a saxophone.
Yep.
But and like The Simpsons, the kids, when they have flashbacks to when these kids are like 40 years old now. The show's been on for 30 years. Bart was 10 when the show started.
Right.
And he's still 10 years old. So when they do flashbacks, the longer the show goes on, they wind up doing flashbacks to like the early 2000s now. But back then, the flashback was to 1990, back when Lisa was like 2 years old.
Right.
And there's a scene.
There's this kind of sliding scale timeline.
Yes. The show is the Simpsons are trapped in time, but the world around them goes on.
Yes.
So they, Bart's been 10 for 30 years and in the fourth grade, but he has cell phones now and things like that. So
right.
they move along with culture, but they just don't age at all. No one in the town ages, frankly.
No.
So
Homer. I forget. Didn't Lisa go from like the fourth grade to the fifth grade or something like that? I forget what it was. Or did Bart go that like?
Well, it's both of them actually.
Yeah.
Lisa gets bumped up to the third grade, and Bart gets bumped down to the third grade.
Oh, that's right. In the episode.
What happens in that episode is that Bart, having done the third grade before, already knows a lot of the stuff, so he's like the smart one there.
Right.
And Lisa doesn't know all that stuff yet, and there's more expected of her, and she's not quite ready, so she's kind of struggling.
Freaking out about it. Yeah.
So by the end of the episode, they both want to go back to their own grades. But yeah, they both get bumped to the third grade in the same class with each other. And it's volatile and hilarity ensues, and buy the box sets, and they're awesome. It's The Simpsons. So anyway, to sort of show you that it's 1990.
Yes.
you see Homer on the sofa watching television, and you just hear snapping and music that's very Audrey's dance.
I think there's like an announcer that goes like, coming up next on Twin Peaks or whatever, and
you hear somebody say, "This is fine you have here in Twin Peaks, damn fine cherry pie too." And then you see Homer watching something on television, and it is the Giants, aka Fire.
Carol Strachan's character,
Carol Strachan's character, slow dancing with a white horse.
Yep.
Under a tree that has a
traffic light
hanging over it.
Yep.
And Homer is just watching it with wide eyes, and he just says, "Brilliant! I have no idea what's going on."
Yep.
And
I was tempted to get that sound clip, and I ran out of time. I was going to get that sound bite. I think it would be perfect for this.
There's always next podcast we can be ready with.
There's this show.
So there's what I always thought was really funny about this, because by this point I had seen Twin Peaks backwards and forwards, and
right.
When somebody who's a fan of the show sees a really tall man dancing with a white horse under a traffic light, you're like, oh, okay.
What's wrong with that?
It almost makes sense in a Twin Peaks film.
Right.
And I thought that was pretty brilliant of The Simpsons, because, with the music, and you have somebody saying Twin Peaks, and people knew it was weird, and so they've got a guy and a horse dancing, and they got the traffic light, so it looks really weird to everybody else, but to Twin Peaks people, we're like, okay.
Yep.
Like, I would not be surprised if I had seen that at some point.
Exactly.
In Twin Peaks. So, I'm always, of course, assuming that anytime we see a white horse, it's Troy the horse.
Yes.
So
yes.
So yes, those were our
the ghost of Troy.
Ghost of Troy. Yes. So yes, those were the Simpsons homages to Twin Peaks, which were short and sweet, but they were amazing.
Yeah, they were, and they're just classics. So love those. All right, next. Now this is kind of more in my wheelhouse because Xan has not watched this show.
I have not, so I'm going to learn along with you.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Fringe. And Fringe was a Fox series that was on not too long ago. So this first, there's actually 3 episodes that are referenced here where we have Twin Peaks. And apparently the writers were big Twin Peaks geeks.
Nice.
So the first of these episodes, the 21st episode of the second season, called Northwest Passage.
Oh.
Which, of course, is a nod to the original title for Twin Peaks. It was because the series was, of course, originally going to be called that until they changed to Twin Peaks. And then they ended up using it as an alternate title for the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a much better title than Pilot. So,
It is a much better title than pilot.
yeah. So, in this episode, now to give you, the basic premise of this series is that you have a scientist named Dr. Walter Bishop. He's played by John Noble, the Denethor from Lord of the Rings,
He's awesome.
and he is awesome. Um, he has a son named Peter Bishop, played by Joshua Jackson, aka Pacey from Dawson's Creek.
And Charles and I were talking about this
Yes,
before we started recording.
right,
And I think it's funny that even people who never watched a second of Dawson's Creek know that Joshua Jackson is Pacey. I think
right,
that's so
right.
funny.
And over the course of the series, early on, we find out that Peter had actually died as a kid. So Walter went to an alternate Earth, took
Oh.
took that universe's Peter, brought him back, and raised him as his
Hmm.
son.
Check this out.
Yeah, exactly. So, and they basically Walter is this very eccentric person, very sweet, and but he's also like a little like he's big into LSD
Mm,
because he uses it to expand his consciousness. So he
gotcha.
doesn't use it because he's a drug addict. He just uses it to enhance his intellect or to think creatively.
Okay,
And
so the typical expand your mind kind of thing.
exactly. So and that plays off in Twin Peaks references for reasons you might obviously suspect, um, involving certain characters. And they're partnered with another female FBI agent that there's kind of a love thing going on, a love interest going on with between her and Peter. And they're this kind of investigative, sort of X-Files ish unit, but that works with
Okay.
with the FBI to investigate all these like very fringe science related crimes that happen. So if you're up on the subject of fringe science, like just really weird, unusual stuff that happens through nature or whatnot, and that's the premise of the show. So in this episode, Peter finds himself in. He kind of goes on a little sabbatical, and he ends up in Novo County, Washington,
Oh, hey.
and home of a diner with famous pies.
This is
He
starting to sound familiar.
he also travels through Snoqualmie, and he in the course of the episode he ends up paired with a local sheriff and helps out to investigate this crime where a girl goes missing. So a little nod right
Is
there. Like,
is the sheriff named after a president?
nope. Actually, no, I take that back. The sheriff, his last name is Madison, I believe.
Oh, okay, there you
So,
go.
yep. So there you go. So yeah. So that was good. Um, now, the second episode, which was the 10th episode of the third season, it's called The Firefly, and this was in January 21st, 2011. Dr. Walter Bishop, gives a shout out to Dr. Lawrence Jacoby because after donning a pair of glasses with 3D colored lenses,
Yes.
you're going to love this. Walter is told that they look good, to which he replies, "Yes, they were sent to me by a Dr. Jacoby from Washington State."
Oh my God, that's
So
amazing.
it is official. Fringe and Twin Peaks share the same TV universe.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Now Fringe is my new priority to
Yes, it is. It should be.
watch.
So yeah, this is in the again. This is in the 10th episode of the third season, and of course, Twin Peaks, where Dr. Jacoby operated as the resident psychiatrist, was located in the state of Washington. So that was an epic reference, and I love the fact
That
that
is
it connected
epic.
those TV universes.
I love that. That's awesome.
Now the biggest
I love
one,
those little I love
yes,
those little throwaway references that
right,
if
can
you know, you're highly rewarded.
yes. And just a few episodes after that, in the 13th episode of the third season, an episode called Immortality, which aired on February 11th of 2011, um, we have the soon-to-be victim of that particular episode's villain, who's a character named Dr. Armand Silva, as in
Whoa.
Frank Silva.
As in Frank Silva?
Yeah,
Hmm.
he orders a cup of coffee and a slice of cherry pie at a diner, which of course Dale Cooper was rather fond of doing. And of course, that's the Silva's name to a nod to Frank Silva. And later in a bedroom scene, this character named Reiko, who is played by Joan Chen, yes, that Joan Chen, aka
What?
Josie Packard from
The
Twin
awesome
Peaks,
and beautiful Joan Chen.
right? She in this episode she plays the mistress of the alternate universe version of Walter Bishop. You know the Walter that the main Walter stole his son. He's kind of like
So is
almost
Walter Bishop
so the
Green Lantern? Like infinite universes have infinite Green Lanterns? Like are there
kind
infinite Walter Bishops?
kind of yeah. Well, the whole premise of the show is alternate timelines.
Oh,
And so yeah, so we've got a lot of alternate timeline stuff going on. So if you're a big geek on as far as that goes, you're gonna love this show. Because what it basically has this kind of there's almost like a war going on through the course of the series between the main universe and this alternate universe, and a lot of it is because of the main universe's Walter um, stealing the other universe's Peter Bishop. And so the other Walter kind of becomes evil as a result. He becomes a character known as nicknamed the Walternate.
the Walternate. I love it.
The Walternate. So in this episode, Joan Chen's character Reiko is like his mistress, the Walternate's mistress, and
Oh, okay.
she kind of consoles him because in this episode he's having doubts about being able to do anything to save his alternate Earth, which is because of that crossover that Walter does, it's kind of creating um, these like little holes in the fabric of reality, and there's like these little they're having these little dimensional instabilities that they have to kind of plug with this substance called amber.
Oh,
Because
okay, and
so there's
I'm assuming that's not like the real kind of amber.
no. It's just kind of nicknamed that because it has amber
Okay.
color. So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on, and he's having doubts. So Walter Nitz has like concerns about getting his son Peter back to his Earth because of Peter's attachment to the female agent Olivia Dunham, and Reiko assures him like, well, everything's gonna, eventually you'll find a way, and he trusts Reiko more than anyone. Now, as this scene ends, the camera pulls back and reveals a spinning ceiling fan. So, of course, that was very popular on the series. So,
He's not a fan now.
exactly. So yeah, you might want to check out Fringe. It's a very cool show.
This is it's. I have
It,
been on the fringe of watching Fringe for a
yes.
long time,
Now
and this might just push me
yeah. Now
just enough.
to give you a little tip, the first season and a little bit of the second season at the beginning essentially is like almost feels like a little bit of an X-Files ripoff.
Okay.
But about a third into the second season is when they kick in. They find their voice, and they have this whole alternate universe, the alternate timelines that gets blown like huge, and then it becomes just this great roller coaster ride.
I'd say I've never been particularly.
And it's only
I've
five
never really,
seasons, so it's not a big like long-term investment.
I've never really had a problem with something being like an X Files ripoff.
Yeah,
Like Supernatural is kind of an X Files ripoff,
yeah,
but I still love it. And similar to the X Files, when the Supernatural had the standalone rather than the ongoing story episodes, I always preferred those.
right.
I always preferred those a little bit better, so that works for me. I find that there are a lot of TV shows out there that, I find myself saying, seasons 1 and 2, watch them so you know what's going on. But season 3 is when it gets good.
Right.
I said that about Parks and Rec. I said that about Adventure Time. I've said that about a lot of shows.
Yeah.
So I think it sometimes takes a while for a show to really find its feet.
Yeah, there's a lot of great father and son relationship stuff going on between Walter and Peter, and obviously complicated because of all the stuff they find out about Peter, where he came
Mhm.
from.
Okay.
But like when the series starts off, they're estranged, and
Ooh.
over the course of the series, Peter learns how to connect to his father, and
Oh, that's kind of cool.
his father to him. So it's a great little. There's a lot of great character development, is what I'm saying.
Now
So
I've got that song stuck in my head, "Father and Son"
yep.
by
Oh,
Cat Stevens.
sorry
There's
about that.
still time to make a change.
Yep. No, I want to watch Guardians. No.
Take it
Yeah, Guardians of the
easy.
Galaxy Volume 2.
Oh yeah, which I have yet to watch
Oh, you
actually.
haven't watched it? Yeah, that song's in there.
Nice.
Yep,
Yeah, Cat Stevens is
yep,
fabulous.
yep. Because of course, Kurt Russell is Chris Pratt's dad in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
I'm glad they chose Father and Son over the obvious choice
Yeah.
of Cats in the Cradle, which is
Yes.
a way inferior song.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Totally. Totally. All right. Next on the list here, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated.
All right. I was unaware that
Yeah.
there was a Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, but I'm actually kind of surprised at how little I know about animation these days, about
Right.
kids animation. I'm
Well,
kind of ashamed and a little surprised
it's kind
about
of
it.
hard to keep up because now there's so many different kid shows and
I'm not saying I'm not watching,
because
Muppet Babies online, because I am.
you're not above that.
Muppet Babies, they're still Muppets, okay? I'm going to watch anything that's got Muppet in the title.
I can never get into Muppet Babies. I've tried.
Oh, Muppet Babies were so good. What's weird about this
Yeah.
is that there's no Scooter or Skeeter, which is bizarre
Yeah.
because
You're
there's
used to that from the show original.
well, and there's a fan theory out there
Yeah.
that and they did this on Robot Chicken
Yeah.
where Skeeter didn't really exist, that Skeeter was like a twin that Scooter killed, but Scooter still talks to her.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's neither one of them there, I'm thinking, did they watch that? Oh my gosh, I'm doing Wallace Shawn again. Like, did they hear that and they thought, okay, we don't want to perpetuate that, or was that true and that's why they're both gone? So I don't know.
Truly,
But
you have a dizzying intellect.
did you not see The Muppets Take Manhattan? Did you not like that movie?
Uh, I liked everything apart from the Muppet Baby segment.
What? That was a great song too. Little 50s throwback song.
Just
And yeah,
that's not my thing.
so
I
good.
guess.
Yeah.
It's tough for.
And let's not forget
Yeah.
do you know who played Nanny on the cartoon? Who the
I know
voice
that was
was?
Barbara Billingsley
Yes, it was Barbara Billingsley.
from Leave It to Beaver. Yes.
The original awesome TV.
Or Airplane, which she's awesome in.
Y'all ain't got no brains anyhow.
Chump don't want no help. Chump don't get
So
no
don't
help.
get the help.
That's my favorite
This
line.
is Slackjack, which is like it's like a horribly racist thing to laugh at, but it's like out of the sketch, she's like there's
Well,
three people in that sketch, one of them's white. It feels okay.
it's hilarious that June Cleaver is the one delivering the line.
It's all about the juxtaposition.
Yes.
That's why it's funny.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's the person delivering it that makes it work.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. This is a weird one, obviously, and this is saying a lot for Twin Peaks. Episode 20 of the second season, episode 46 counting. It's called Stand and Deliver. It's from March 28th, 2013.
Oh, this is new.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we're getting more to present day.
Which just shows you the everlasting mark on culture that Twin Peaks left.
Yeah.
Because 2013 was way before we even knew there was going to be a revival.
This is still the wilderness years for Twin Peaks before the revival. Yep.
This is the James Hurley saga era of the Twin Peaks cultural phenomenon.
Exactly. The 4 episodes we don't talk about.
We just don't know what to do with ourselves. We're just wondering.
We're just like, can Cooper
just
come
got on our bikes and we're riding.
We're just waiting for Cooper to show back up on screen. At this
Pretty
point.
much.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Or as I like to call it, waiting for Wyndham Earl.
Oh, I like that. We should have a band, and that should be our first album title.
That is a good title. I will give you that. I didn't think about that, but yeah, waiting for Wyndham Earl.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good band name. The Mystery Incorporated gang is inside a library researching a villain called the Dandy Highwayman. Yes, this is a nod to Stand and Deliver by Adam Ant.
Mm-hmm.
And
excellent.
Yeah, which is apparently the show referenced a lot of pop culture too.
I'm starting to think I need to watch because here's the thing about Scooby-Doo. Like back in the day,
right?
The further on it got, Scooby-Doo got horrible.
Yeah.
Like Like when we started having Scrappy Doo
Well, that was the big
and
downfall that everybody's like, yeah, once they brought Scrappy in, there's like this show stopped being cool.
how does Scooby Doo and Scooby Dum not know how to talk, but Scrappy is perfectly articulate? It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Do they get dumb
And then
like worse as they get older or what is it?
and then I will say there's one bad thing about the Muppet Babies is that it started this trend of little versions of everything.
Yes.
And there was a Scooby Doo Kids where they were like 8 or
Yes.
something like that, and that was just stupid. So I guess I've sort of been living off of the assumption that anything after the new Scooby Doo movies is going to be total crap. Not that the new Scooby Doo movies was any good,
Right.
that was the hour long episodes with guest stars like Sonny and Cher. I mean, they
Yeah.
were cheesy, but
Right.
I've just been sort of going like, oh wow, new Scooby Doo that can't
Or
possibly
you
be
had
good.
like Batman and Robin or
That one was good. I liked the Sonny and Cher one.
the
I
Three
liked the
Stooges.
Three Stooges, Harlem
Yep.
Globetrotters, Mama Cass, which is probably my favorite one. No, it's probably a tie between Mama Cass and Jerry Reed.
I didn't realize there was a
Just
Jerry Reed
Jerry
episode.
Reed for like no reason as on Scooby Doo. I love it.
I can't remember that one.
But yeah, the new Scooby Doo movies and Scooby Doo Where Are You are like pretty
Yeah.
much all you really need to be watching
Right.
when you're watching Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
So I had no idea that I should have been keeping up with this. But that sounds, Twin Peaks and Adam Ant references. I am so there for that.
It is a weird combo, isn't it? So Scooby ends up falling asleep, having a strange dream, as you might expect. And so he goes inside a replica of the Red Room inside the Black Lodge. So we actually get to see him walking down that hallway, that little corridor, with the curtains on both sides, walking down
hmm
to the Red Room. So we get the statues. We get the whole 9 yards with this.
Speaking of
They re,
dreams,
they re,
Charles,
they
I
re,
just realized we forgot an
yeah.
homage that I
What?
completely should have talked about, and I'll talk about this when we're done with Scooby Doo.
Oh, we can cut. We can, if you want to go back to it, we can come
No,
back to
no, no. I
Scooby.
just chronologically we missed it because we were talking about television, but I just thought of something that was actual movie
Okay.
that I should have talked about, and we'll get to that when we're done here with TV.
Okay. All right. So we'll finish up Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, and then we'll take a little digression back to that.
All right,
All
that
right.
works.
Is that cool? So he goes inside the Red Room. Of course, you got the curtains, the zigzag, chevron patterns, Venus statues, and he encounters a familiar little man dancing to jazzy music, voiced by Michael J. Anderson.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So the little man from another place is actually portraying himself here.
That's
And
fantastic.
and of course he does the same forwards backwards speech effect,
Awesome.
which
Awesome.
which scares Scooby, snaps him out of his nightmare. Now later on in the episode, he falls asleep again, returns to what's called the sitting room, and the little man says, "Scooby-Doo, your time has come," gesturing to the curtains, and he says like, "She is here," and the curtains part to reveal this female dog named Nova, played by Amy Acker, of all people.
Okay.
Yeah, she does the voice of this, and apparently the body's been possessed by a spirit of the Anunnaki, these interdimensional beings that visit the Earth every few thousand years. So apparently they arrive during an event when the barrier between their world and ours grows weak. Now, what does that sound like?
That sounds like when the lodge opens up.
Exactly. So yeah, the big reference to like when Glastonbury Grove, and that when the astronomical alignment, when Jupiter and Saturn meet, that whole deal.
And Jupiter aligns with Mars.
Yes. So that is a very obscure Peaks reference to reference the astronomy.
Good job, Scooby-Doo writers.
Yep. And now a couple of episodes later, they kind of do a sequel follow-up with this called Nightmare in Red. And this is on April 2nd, 2013. Scooby-Doo falls asleep again, enters the Black Lodge again, finds Nova there again. And the gang ends up, he keeps having these nightmares. And so they go, the gang visits the dancing man from before, who turns out actually to be this author that Velma is reading. And he's a reclusive hypnotist named Horatio Caron. or Charon.
Mm-hmm.
It's with a K though. And he sends them to what's called the sitting room, a world between worlds.
The sitting room, I
Yep,
love it.
a world between worlds, a waiting room junction between time, space, and different dimensions.
Awesome.
And through hypnosis, they have to face this monster to uncover its identity, to get Horatio's other half, the best part of him that was trapped there.
This is like really deep for Scooby-Doo.
Isn't it?
You know, it's
Isn't
like we've come a long way since they were
this
just
is kind of more
stoned and
this
played
is
Scooby stacks.
exactly this like so we've kind of moved beyond the stoner stuff and but this is I think this is maybe for your older Scooby-Doo fan a little bit, but
I got one thing to say about this.
yeah.
Zoinks.
Jinkies.
Jinkies.
So
Wow, I'm impressed.
yeah, so they even reference like the whole doppelganger thing,
Oh my god!
which is
Wow.
which is pretty epic.
Again,
Yeah.
gaining points for predicting the future.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Right. Is it future or is it
Or
past?
past.
Yes. But pretty. So credit there. They got Michael J. Anderson for this. Both of those
That's
episodes, which is pretty.
Michael J. Anderson is fantastic. He's in one of my all-time favorite X-Files episodes,
Yeah.
and
I'm kind
he
of
was in,
kind of sad he went crazy and had his falling out and
yeah,
didn't.
that is sad. He was also played one of Santa's elves in a Sega commercial back in the 90s,
Yeah.
where they tried to give Santa the idea for something for Sega, but he turned it down. So we sold the whole thing to Sega, and now the Christmas elves are like on a beach somewhere in the Caribbean. I'll see if I can find that. I don't know why I remember that weird crap. Probably because it's Michael Anderson.
Yeah. Probably. Probably.
Yeah.
I want to say, I think Michael Anderson was actually on an episode of. No, I don't think. No, he's on an episode of something else I saw him in.
Okay.
But anyway,
Yeah,
all
he
right.
pops up every once in a while, and it's awesome when he does.
Okay, so
But,
what's your reference that I missed?
well, see, we were talking mostly about TV, so I had kind of forgotten about this.
Yeah.
But in 1995, there was an independent movie about independent movies.
Yeah.
It was called Living in Oblivion.
Okay, not familiar with
And
this one.
oh my god, it's so funny. It's really good. And this is on YouTube. This part is on YouTube specifically.
Yeah.
It was written and directed by a guy named, I don't know if it's Tom DeCillo or Tom DeCio. It's two L's, so it could go either way depending on the family.
Right.
But it stars Steve Buscemi as this, crazy independent filmmaker.
Yeah.
And it's following him around during a day of filming on this movie that has like no budget whatsoever. This weird movie.
Right.
And there's a scene that's a dream sequence. And this is more of a reference to Twin Peaks than it is like an homage to Twin Peaks, but I think we should still talk about it because it's amazing. And so somebody's supposed to be dreaming and they see this dancing dwarf wearing a powder blue tuxedo and top hat, right?
Yeah.
And the actor who was playing the dwarf, who by the way is Peter Dinklage.
Really?
And, yes, it's
From
Peter Dinklage
from Game of Thrones fame.
from
Yep.
Game of Thrones. He kind of gets upset about the fact that he feels that this is sort of a typecast stereotype.
Yes. Right.
And he's like, "Why does it have to be a dwarf?" And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Why is it a dwarf?" It's like, "I don't know, man. It's a dream, so it's supposed to be weird." He's like, what is it with movies these days? Every time it's like, oh, it's weird. It must be a dream. There's a freaking dwarf in it. And he's like, even I don't have dreams with dwarves in them. And he just starts freaking out.
That's funny.
And he's like, you can take this stupid movie and shove it up your ass. And he like walks off the set.
Great.
This movie is about everything that can go wrong when you're trying to make an independent film.
That's pretty epic.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Ooh, it's weird. It must have a dwarf in it. And like there's red curtains. And it's, even I don't have dreams with dwarves in them.
That's an epic line. That's great.
It's fantastic. It is definitely kind of a visual thing too. So I will post that to our page because it is so funny.
Yeah, I was glad to see. I got recently. Speaking of Peter Dinklage, he was in Avengers: Infinity War. He plays.
What's his name?
He plays Eitri, and Eitri.
So he's a different character than he is in the X-Files. X-Men.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's complete. Yeah, because that's whole Fox
I know it's
thing.
different,
Yeah,
different
yeah,
canonical
yeah.
crap.
They
Yeah.
haven't merged yet.
Right.
So yeah, so he's in Avengers: Infinity War, playing a different character, and he plays Eitri, who is this um, like kind of a who's a dwarf, but Asgardian, Thor mythology.
Oh, okay.
Dwarves are like huge.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to see Peter Dinklage as this kind of giant character,
That's awesome.
as a giant dwarf, and yes, I realize that's an oxymoron.
Well, not in Norse mythology.
Not
It's
in
not.
Norse mythology, because yeah,
Yeah.
he's towering over everybody. But so it's kind of interesting. Like Peter Dinklage finally gets to play a giant, and that's kind of like pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and even when you think of like dwarves
I
like Gimli, they're like substantial dudes.
I have to think he
They
kind of
might not
got
be
a
tall,
kick.
but they're
I have to think
yeah.
he kind of got a kick out of playing a giant for once.
That's right. Peter Dinklage is a fantastic actor. He's in a lot of really good things. What was that TV show he was in that was kind of like the X Files? It was like a detective show that was kind of a little bit weird, and he was a drunk. I forget what that's called, but that was a good show
I
too.
can't remember.
And he's in I don't
That's
know
what
if you've ever seen the Station Agent, but that's a fantastic movie. And people, this movie got a bad rap, but I actually really enjoyed it. Pixels, did you see Pixels?
No, I didn't.
Pixels is very cheesy, and I
It looked
think,
really really bad.
but it's so funny. It's like it's so bad, it's funny, and
Yeah,
I think people were expecting a little bit more out of it.
yeah.
But it's really just goofy reason to talk about video games.
I
But
think
he
if
plays.
you were like me, they were just turned off because it was an Adam Sandler movie.
See, and I don't have that kind of problem with Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler has been in some fantastic movies: 51st Dates, Spanglish, The Wedding Singer, Punch Drunk Love, all really good movies. Um, but he plays this character who is in prison because he's just a horrible person, basically. He's like a
Right.
petty thief, and um, he was one of the video game championships back in the day of the classic video games. That's why they need his help. And he's like, all right, I got some demands. I want to date with either Serena Williams or Martha Stewart. And he's like, and I don't want to pay no more taxes. I mean, I'm talking sales tax too. Like, I want to go buy some gum and flash a card that says I saved the world. I don't got to pay no tax.
Kind of like an Armageddon.
It was yeah. He's just really really
That's
good. And
funny.
when he was on, and we were talking at the beginning of this episode about the
Yeah.
classic Saturday Night Live episodes, and him on Saturday Night Live being in an episode of Naked and Afraid with Leslie Jones is one of the funniest things I have ever seen. Like, you're allowed to bring a couple of things with you
Right.
for survival. He brings like matches and a flashlight and like fresh water or something like that. I forget what she brings, but she also brings like hot sauce. She's like, I put this on everything. And there's a
I like.
scene where they're doing, you know how they do like the confessional
Yeah.
scene where they just talk to them, and he just looks at the camera and he's like, I know she knows my name is not Tyrion. So funny. But yeah,
That's,
that is classic. But yes, Peter Dinklage. Even I don't have dreams with dwarves in them. Yeah, 1995, Living in Oblivion. Look it up because
I have to
it's
check
very
that. I
funny.
have to check that out. See if I can find that.
Yeah,
No, that's awesome.
yeah.
All right. That's good to know. I didn't know that one. You. Okay. Just got a couple more. Uh, recently, this is now where we finally hit the return era.
Oh, the Return era. Okay.
Yes. So this has just happened like
I
last
mean, we
year.
just talked about 20 years of parodies and homages. I
I
mean,
know. It's
there is
and
this
like
is like an
it's.
indelible mark on the face of popular culture.
I mean, and they're from such different, like, diverse sources that
Seriously,
you would never connect, but they connect through Twin Peaks. So
I just love that
you can do like a 6 degrees of separation through Twin Peaks
through Twin
references.
Peaks. Yeah, seriously, that's fantastic.
You can connect actors and whatnot all the way through this like this. Um, so we have a couple of sketches that happen on talk shows, like when like Con McLaughlin would be out promoting Twin Peaks: The Return or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the first of these sketches was on Late Night with Seth Meyers, which aired on April 16th, 2017. And you had mentioned that you thought this was rather disappointing.
I was a little disappointed in this because it was
And I
the
agreed
premise.
with you, I think.
Yeah, the premise of this was that if the Late Night with Seth Meyers was more like Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
because
it's basically a talk show in the waiting room.
yeah, so what they did is they said like, well, instead of in Studio 8G, one night we filmed late night in the mysterious Red Room from Twin Peaks. That's the premise.
Right. And so it's just basically Seth dressed up to look like Agent Cooper
Yeah,
and a woman talking backwards like Laura Palmer, but he's still talking about like they're having regular guests on.
you're right.
So it was just it just felt like the two things didn't mix well to me.
Yeah. No,
But they did a good job visually. I think was very
yeah,
well done.
and I agree with that because for one thing, Myers is he's not like the young Cooper. He's like the 25 years later Cooper.
He's the "I'll see you again in
I'll
25
see
years"
you.
Cooper.
Yeah, so like when Cooper always said, "Well, I was an old man
Mm-hmm.
of all of what 40." So thanks a lot for that, right? So,
No,
but
25 years. Cooper would have been like almost
50s.
60.
Okay,
He would have been almost 60, I
that's
think.
right. Yeah, we have to. I have
Because
to
wasn't he
remember.
like 34 years old, 34,
Yeah, when we were
35?
talking
Yeah.
about the autobiography of Dale Cooper, you might be right. Yes. Okay, so maybe about six. So I don't. I guess I don't feel as bad yet.
Don't feel too bad.
I got 10 years to feel bad about that. All right. But it was a great recreation. Like they got the 25 years later Thai version,
Mm-hmm.
and he's
Mm-hmm.
got and the kind of like that weird facial makeup Kyle MacLachlan had to make him look older with this with his slicked down
Yes.
hair and everything, and
Yep.
yes, so it was pretty
I would
faithful
have liked it.
reproduction.
Yeah, I would have liked it a little bit better if because what they had is, and I don't know who this actress was that was playing the Laura Palmer
I don't
character,
know either. It's driving me crazy.
but
Uh,
she just looked like Laura Palmer and said the Laura Palmer lines, and
right.
she got up at one point and said to Seth, whispered in his ear, and then he just said, "Oh, that's a good story," which was kind of cute. But
Yeah.
I thought it would have been more interesting if actual people had come in
Yeah.
and done the backwards talking
Yeah.
rather than the Laura Palmer part. Or even if they had Cheryl Lee or Ray Wise or somebody from Twin Peaks who's been there before come in,
Yeah.
or even if they would have had Kyle MacLachlan also there.
Yeah. So something to kind of like a surprise guest.
Like
Yes.
either have it be Twin Peaks or have it be a talk show in Twin Peaks, but
Yeah.
meshing the two didn't work for me very well.
Well, this was just like a 2 minute sketch, so you had to get the premise in, you had to execute
Right.
it and get it out. But
But get a real
but
person and add it and bring it up to
it,
4 minutes.
they could.
You know.
Well, they should have fleshed this out. It would have been a better idea how they fleshed it out. So
Hmm. I thought so too.
now they do have like they make a point like they try to get down the feel like they even shoot it in 4:3 screen
They do.
format.
Yeah,
So
visually it was perfect.
like the original TV format, and so they do the credits, and apparently like the Twin Peaks titles replaced with late night, so they kind
Late
of
night, that was really
yeah
cute.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they do that, and then so we have I think we talked about this with the actress. She now she does the actress that plays Laura Palmer. Um, she does that, the whole physical movements. She recreates Cheryl
She does
Lisa.
this
Like she
and
stands up and slowly walks back to her chair, sits down again, blinking her eyes.
she does a fantastic job. Yeah,
Yeah.
she does a great job.
She laughs in reverse speak. And then we get like some other guy that comes in, kind of like what tries to do what Mike Myers did in the SNL sketch.
Right.
And so he's like it's a full size guy trying to act like a little person. And he rubs his hands together and then claps his hands together and says, "Let's rock."
Yeah, that I thought was great.
Yeah. So we got that, just like Michael J. Anderson did. And then, of course, we hear some of, Dance of the Dream Man from Badalamenti.
Hmm.
And the man from another place gets up, starts dancing, just like Anderson did. And then, like, Myers ends it with, like, "We'll be back with comedian Ray Romano."
Right, which
Yeah.
is sort of funny in its own
Right.
juxtaposition, but
And
I
that's
think if
it.
they had done more juxtaposition in the sketch, it would have been funnier.
Yeah. It's just,
But
it was a great concept idea, but the execution just wasn't there.
agreed, and everybody, and no bad words to say about the performances. The performances were all
Right.
wonderful.
I mean, it's nice that Myers actually, did a nod. So,
Yes,
so
yes, that
credit
was
for
great.
credit for the attempt, but yeah, that's about it.
Exactly.
Another one that I kind of feel pretty is along the same lines is the Late Late Show with James Corden, which aired on
Oh yes.
September 20th, 2017.
Okay.
And this was like a 2 minute 50-second sketch, so it's a little more fleshed out, but it does have some guests. So it opens because Kyle MacLachlan's there to promote probably Twin Peaks. I think it was,
Probably, yes.
and so he goes there and James. The premise is that he stops by Kyle MacLachlan's dressing room, only to find himself. He goes inside and it's the Red Room.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So Corden sits down in Cooper's chair, where Cooper would be sitting, and then
Hmm.
Kyle MacLachlan is kind of off to the side in one of the side chairs next to him.
Right.
And so James is like, okay, I want to get I'm just here to see if I can get the flow going between us before the show starts to kind of get you in the mood, see what we got. And then Kyle speaks back to him in backwards speak, going, "Sounds good,
Nice.
James." And James is like, "Oh, I get it. You're doing the backwards talking thing from the show." And then James tries to talk backwards, but he can't. He's like, "Okay, you can do it. I can't do it." Kyle says, he says, "My arms always bend backwards."
Oh, wow. We've got some obscure reference to quotes in there, too.
Exactly. So James says, "Okay, feels a bit weird now. Why don't we get back so that we're in the rhythm, regular talking? Should we give normal voices, like when we should practice some enunciation?" And he says, "Will you say some with me? Like say red leather, yellow leather."
Oh, God.
And so Kyle does the red leather, yellow leather, but back in the backward speak. He does
Okay,
he
that's impressive. I've never been able to say that frontwards.
Yeah. So red leather, yellow leather. And then James is like, "Right, you're still doing the talking backwards thing. I'm really going to need you to drop that, Kyle, for the show, okay?" And then he goes, "Red leather." And then Kyle says red leather backward speech. This goes back and forth a couple times, and then James says red, and then Kyle says red, back and forth, red, and that goes on. No progress whatsoever, though. And then James is like, "Well, okay, this is a nightmare. We're not getting anywhere." And he says, "Look, I'm going to really need you to drop this when we're out there. Okay, what's important that you and the guests get on really well, laugh at their jokes, Let's practice a good fake laugh now." And James does this gag for Kyle to laugh at,
Hmm.
but Kyle laughs in the backwards
In
speech.
backwards last.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So
So this sounds like a backwards sketch that goes on a little too long.
a little bit, but
Okay.
but
Okay.
it does pick up a little bit here because James says, "Okay, that's still weird though. It just still sounds weird. It's just creepy." And at this point, Dame Judi Dench, who's also on the show,
What?
appears.
I thought
And
we weren't going to talk about Judy,
we're not going to talk about Judy. We're not going to talk about Judi Dench.
but we did not keep her out of it. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Good to know.
yeah. So Dame Judi Dench sits in on a Twin Peaks sketch. Go figure. And Judy starts talking backwards.
No, that's awesome.
And she does, like, "Hello, James." And James is like, he's all incredulous. He's like, "Oh, not you as well. Come on. All right. You two stay in your alternate dimension. I've got a show to prepare for. And you better put this room back exactly the way you found it. I'm not paying for this, okay?"
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that.
And
That's
then
pretty good.
so James walks out, and then Judy and Kyle start saying hello to one another and start schmoozing one another in normal speech.
Nice.
So they only did that because James was there.
That's really funny.
And
I
then
like
James comes back into the room, says, "Hey, that was normal talking. You were doing normal talking." And Kyle and Judy at that moment open their mouths and unleash this demonic scream. Like kind of when Laura screamed in the black.
at the
Yeah,
or at the end of the series.
yeah,
Too.
yeah,
At the end of the
exactly.
return.
You're right.
Yeah.
So they both do this, and then the room turns black, but then they got the strobe effect going on.
Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah.
they homage the strobe effect.
Yeah. So when she's in the waiting room running up to the
Yeah,
camera and
yeah,
screaming.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And then James is all startled, of course, and he's like, "I'm going to go talk to the band," and leaves. And then
See, that's what I love.
and it ends
Go
with
ahead.
Judy and Kyle just resumes schmoozing with one another in normal speech.
That's awesome.
And that's
That's
it.
awesome. And that's what I love about these homages is the attention to detail that's
Right.
involved.
And that's what makes it
These
good.
are obviously written by people who love this show
Right.
and have watched it numerous times and know the little things that are important, maybe not, maybe yes, maybe no, kind of a thing. So I think that's great.
Yeah,
I love that about these homages.
yeah. That's one of the things I've gotten from all the watching all this stuff fresh. Is that it seems like the best Twin Peaks sketches and homages are the ones that do have that really good attention to detail.
Or that really obscure little thing. Like I
Yeah,
think this James Corden one, if they're going to talk the backwards talk,
yeah,
they probably should have thrown an Erev in there too.
yes,
That and that's just, of course, me being a nerd. That
right.
my job.
That's kind of armchair quarterbacking it, but yes,
Yes, armchair quarterback. I'm not. I don't have a show. I'm not a writer on a show, but if I were, here's what I would do. And of course, somebody
yeah.
would do the exact same thing to me if I wrote one. So, but you just start thinking about those things. Oh, if they're talking backwards speech, they're going to do an era kind of a thing. So,
As a writer, this is me all the time because I am just constantly going,
I'll bet
this is how I would have done it,
mm-hmm.
but I couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it because I don't work for James Corden.
Exactly.
Yet.
So, yet.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, so that's basically all I have with all that. But I think it's a lot. So
that is a lot, and that's over a lot of years. That's a long time that we've talked about.
It shows you just the kind of pop culture resonance that this show had.
And there are some shows that are like that were on a small amount of time that they packed a wallop. We had 5 seasons of The Twilight Zone, and it ended in 1965.
Right.
But if somebody talks about something creepy, we still hear do-do-do-do-do. I mean, people still do that.
Right.
There are some things that are just indelible pop culture
icons.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for the word.
You're welcome.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up is now that we've talked about television, we've talked about film.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks references are working their way onto the internet and into the world of memes.
Yes, you've talked about your shitposting.
Yes, yes. There is a Simpsons shitpost group and a Twin Peaks shitpost group that I'm part of,
right.
And they're both oftentimes hilarious. And I found something on YouTube the other day when I was looking through trying to find any other homages that I had. The only other homage that I had thought of that I couldn't find to talk about here was a TV show. I think I'm the only one that remembers, except for the people that was in it.
Yeah.
There was a TV show on ABC in the mid-90s called Anything But Love.
Okay.
And it was
Jamie Lee Curtis. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis and Richard Harris. Not Richard Harris. Lewis.
Richard Lewis, yeah.
If it was Richard Harris, I would have been more into it because I know he's a bit older than me, but Richard Harris, hot.
Hey, that's the OG Dumbledore.
Oh my goodness, Richard Harris. I will never use that recipe again. I mean, he was some hotness. Anyway, they play writers at a magazine who have sexual tension. I mean, that's like kind of the premise of the whole show.
Yeah.
They made a show around will they or won't they,
right?
Kind of a thing. So it kind of got old pretty quickly, but it was Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm going to watch that. I love her.
And Richard Lewis being neurotic Richard Lewis, yes.
Yeah, Richard Lewis being Richard Lewis.
His bit, yeah.
Yes. And I believe their boss is Ann Magnuson, who's always good. And so they did, and I don't even remember what the premise of the episode was. I just remember that they did a Twin Peaks send-off.
Right.
Where she played the Audrey character and he played the Dale Cooper character, and she just kept putting things in her mouth and taking them out, and there's something else.
Yeah.
They might have done the same bow trick that they did on Saturday Night Live, but the one that I remember the most is she puts a paperclip in her mouth and then pulls it back out, and it's in the shape of the United States.
Oh, is that what it was? I thought it was like a chain or something. But
no, she puts it in, she pulls it out, and it looks like the United States.
That's funny.
Like even has like a little Florida at the bottom.
That's funny.
So I'm sure there's others that we're forgetting, and others we never saw, and others from shows that no one remembers, and you can't find them on YouTube. I went on YouTube, and you can find the opening credits because the opening credit theme song was written by J.D. Souther. Okay. Who, if you are a fan of the Eagles, he's in the Eagles. So when that kind of thing happens, like when there was do you remember the John Larroquette show?
Vaguely.
Yeah, nobody remembers that.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it, but I don't think I watched it.
It was funny. It was really funny.
Yeah.
The opening theme song was David Cassidy. So, there are things like that where we might forget the show, but the theme song was written by somebody that
got it.
We really
somebody notable. Yeah.
Not Twin Peaks, Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
the 80s Twilight Zone. You know who
Right.
did the themes
Yeah,
to
that
that
was
one?
Jerry Garcia, wasn't it?
It was a Grateful Dead, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Because
The only
I thought
Grateful
that was
Dead song that I like.
I thought that was a pretty cool rendition of the theme.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's the only Grateful Dead song I like. So, but yeah, we've moved on to the internet and memes. So we have
Yeah.
our shit posting,
Yep.
like we talked about. And this for me was like the ultimate in meme inception for me. Two of my all-time favorite shows come together to make
Right.
the ultimate Reese's cup of pop culture
Right.
awesomeness. Apparently,
Yes.
and I'm not as up on memes as the young people are. It's like I know them, I get them what the kids are doing these days.
Yep.
There's an episode of The Simpsons called I forget what the number is, something short films about Springfield, and it's send up 32 short films about Glenn Gould. So it came out around the time of that movie.
Right.
And it's just little vignettes through the whole thing. And then there's this is the episode where we have Superintendent Chalmers coming over to Principal Skinner's house for lunch, and he serves him what he calls steamed hams. So for those of you out there who hear your kids talking about steamed hams and you're not sure what the hell they're talking about, that's a Simpsons reference. I have my friend Sarah's little boy and my nephew Aaron have never seen like a second of The Simpsons, but they can recite that entire sketch to me because the steamed ham things is such a big meme. When I was in Australia, there was a guy there who had a T-shirt on that said steamed hams, but it was in the Stranger Things font. So it's everywhere, steamed hams.
That's cool. I'm going to check that out. I have the episode, but I just, because I've got them all. And, I'm trying to remember that bit.
So yes, steamed hams it took 20 years to incubate, but it has come out like crazy.
That's good.
So what happened in this not meme, but this YouTube mashup video that I found.
Yeah.
It's steamed hams Twin Peaks style, where things are slowed down. They have
artsy shots.
Music, they talk backwards. It's really best if you just watch it because I'll just sort of be talking visual and audio clues.
Well, you posted it on our Ghostwood Facebook page.
I posted it on our Facebook page, and
I need to check that out.
Yeah, I highly recommend it because it's very funny. So it has made its way into the meme mashup shitpost internet realm as well.
Nice.
So it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's not going anywhere. Thank you very much, ABC, who canceled it in 1991.
Yep.
Jerks.
And it was our collective willpower that brought that show back.
And the fact that, we wrote letters about it.
Yeah, and the fact that, maybe Showtime's president used to work at ABC and brought it back.
And figured out that they had made a horrible, horrible mistake.
Yeah.
Some people figured it out.
That's all right. And we got one more season in addition to the movie, so that was good.
We did. We'll take whatever you can do.
And we never thought we'd get that season. We thought it was done.
We never thought we'd get it.
Yeah.
No.
Just goes to show you there's always hope.
Frank Silva passed away. Jack Nance passed away. We thought this was never going to happen, and yet we got it.
Yep.
So
and we're all grateful for that. All right.
That's the thing about David Lynch fans. We are happy with peanuts. We are not fancy people. We do not expect much. Throw us anything, we'll take it.
You could serve us on the paper plates and the paper cups, and we're okay with that.
You can serve us little mini bloody chickens, just like regular chicken, and we'll take it.
Those little crap silverware, plastic silverware that you try to use a knife on something and it breaks.
The fork breaks every time you go through anything softer than pudding.
We'll take it.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. All right.
Hint, David Lynch.
Season 4.
Come on.
Throw us the frickin' bone here.
Frickin' bone.
Yep. All right. We've talked a lot, as we always do. So, if you want to get a hold of us and, you want to drop us a line and you want to say, hey, you guys forgot to talk about this. Or
yes, please tell us.
Please let us know what we forgot that you thought was so awesome, because we'll read it here on the podcast. And you can do that by dropping us a line at ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can drop us a line on the Twitter machine at ghostwoodcast. We'd love to hear from you. So please follow us there.
And check out our Facebook page, because I wind up posting little fiddly bits of bizarreness whenever I find it.
Yes.
So I highly recommend that. That is Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast on Facebook. You can
Yes,
find us fairly easily and like us and follow us.
that's right. And also, while you're at it, why don't you go to the Southgate Media Group website and support Rob Southgate, who pays the bills and keeps the lights on.
He
And so,
pays the bills and he does all the behind the scene work for us, so we
exactly,
don't have
he's
to.
kind enough to throw our opening and closing theme music on, and
We can just be
gets
the
it.
pretty voices on the radio.
Yeah, well, you're the pretty voice.
Aw,
I'm just that guy.
you're
So
you're the you are the authoritative,
I'm
eloquent.
the guy with the sinus congestion. So yeah,
You're the authoritative, eloquent one. That's what I'm calling.
I've got you fooled. All right. So yeah, please do that. And Zan, where can they reach you on the interwebs while they're at it?
I am on Twitter and Instagram as Udinax19. That is Xanadu spelled backwards and then just the number 19, 19. What about you, Charles?
Xanadu.
And that is why it's backwards.
Exactly. All right. As for me, I'm at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter machine and the Instagram. And Google Plus for all you crazy kids in the Google Plus. Shout out to Karen, my Phantom Zone podcast partner.
I'm
And
on the Google Plus, but I don't think I've checked it in like a year.
yeah, I know. Well, I don't like all I do is like I post articles from Damn Good Coffee and Hot, my blog of geeky things.
Good segue.
Thank you.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn Good Coffee.
Good work, Andy.
Yep, thank you. Damn Good Coffee and Hot, where I talk about all the shows like that we just probably covered here during this episode, because there's a lot of pop culture stuff, but also, of course, Twin Peaks and Ghostwood and what have you, and all kinds of comic book sci-fi goodness. And let's see what else. I'm on the Facebook, Charles Skaggs, of course. And my other podcast that I do for Southgate Media, the Phantom Zone podcast that I do with Karen Lindsay, who was kind enough to set in with us on our previous episode. So hi, Karen. And then Titan Talk, the Titans podcast I do with Jesse Jackson. And Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast I do with Jesse Jackson. So please check those out. I would definitely appreciate it. And I'm sure my co-hosts will as well. So
See, that's the thing. If you're geeky, there's plenty of Southgate Media stuff out there for you to enjoy, and a lot of it is hosted by Charles. So
probably far too much is what people say. No.
I would not say that. I would not say that. Although I am tempted to ask Rob if I can do a Simpsons.
You like that idea I threw out, didn't you?
That's already kind of halfway this one. I like that idea. Yeah. I
Yeah.
need another outlet for it so I can shut up about it in my regular life and on this podcast.
So you're saying that if you have a Simpsons podcast, you won't make as many Simpsons references here?
I think I said that, but I'm really not sure I meant it.
I wouldn't put money on it.
No, do not put money on it. Do not
don't
do not bet the farm on that.
yeah,
because you
don't
will
bet the
be
house.
homeless.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Seriously.
Yeah, because that's kind of a very risky bet.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about next time, kids?
Next time we're going to try a little something.
Yes.
We're going to try a little something. We're going to do a thing that I have heard about on other TV show podcasts,
Yes.
where we do commentary on the episodes.
Yeah. This is something you've been kind of been a proponent of for quite a while.
Yeah, I thought we should try it, and then I sort of figured out a way that we could do it, even if we aren't in the same room together.
Right.
Because as you heard, Charles, has 3 other podcasts.
Yes.
I am in 2 pinball leagues.
Yep.
We're both married
Yep.
to other people.
Most of the time, at least.
And we have we both have cats we take care of,
Right.
parents we take care of.
Yep.
We are both married only children with 1 cat and parents that we take care of.
Are you sure we're not related?
I don't. We are only children who are related.
It's possible.
I don't know how that works.
I don't know.
But, so we've got, so us finding a way to be in the same room together doesn't always happen.
Right. The odds are not in our favor.
Yeah, I figured some. Oh, speaking of which,
Yes.
we are recording this Thursday before Memorial Day, so it is Memorial Day weekend. So a year ago, Twin Peaks premiered on May 21st,
Right.
and the Memorial Day was on May 22nd. This year, Memorial Day is later. I don't. Today's the 20. What is it? The 25th today?
Yeah.
24th today.
24th.
I don't.
Yeah.
So, but yes. So a year ago, on this same weekend, I was jumping out of my skin with impatience. I don't know about you, Charles, but
I was definitely the same.
it was.
And we were making our plans to watch the first episode together, and
Yep. So I might just have to go get some commemorative donuts or pie or something this weekend.
well,
Just because.
something I could suggest, something I posted on our Ghostwood page and
Mhm.
also on our Twitter account at GhostwoodCast. Um, Apparently, Showtime is doing a for your consideration marathon of all 18 episodes of The Return, back to back to back to back to back to
Nice.
back to back, etc., etc.
Well, maybe we should go backwards then. Maybe we should start with episode 1 of The Return rather than episode 1 of the original series.
I don't know. It's up to you. I'm cool with
I don't
going
know.
in order.
See, watch this
Because it
space,
does,
kids.
well, because it does seem like it makes sense to watch the original 2 seasons, then the
It
movie,
does.
and then the Return.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah,
recently talked about, we haven't talked much about the original series as far as analysis.
that's true. We have not talked about it. So yeah, watch this space, kids.
All we did was we've talked about the pilot in the final episode
Mhm.
of the original series.
We'll make a decision and we'll surprise
Yeah,
you.
yeah. We have to maybe do a little behind the scenes discussion, but
Yes.
tentatively
Mhm.
we may cover Northwest Passage, the pilot. Only this will be the commentary edition because we already talked that one to death. So now
We did. So
this will just be us like watching the episode, making MST3K snarky remarks.
and I am not going to promise that I'm not going to cry because I just might. So
Yep.
this could get emotional. So we'll see what happens. But yes, I think we're going to start doing some commentary so we
Tell
can
Harry
really
I didn't cry.
tell Harry I didn't cry, but Lucy, it's so horrible. I like cry just thinking about him saying that. It's so emotional, and it's so not Andy because
The way his voice breaks up, because they kind of got away from the crying everything bit.
Yeah, they kind of got. Well, they didn't have a lot of other murders after that.
I know that's true. That's true.
So, because we never did find, Andy never saw.
At least not till the Return.
Yeah, and Andy never saw Maddie in the trunk of the car with the golf clubs.
That's
He
true.
never saw that.
That's
so.
true. Yep.
So yeah, so this is the kind of stuff we're gonna do.
Yep.
When we do our commentary.
So if you're in the mood for a little commentary, our takes as we watch the episodes. And so we're going to do that. We're going to try and get that set up. And we'll also have a starting point so that Xan will be synced up with me, but also that if you at home or wherever you're listening to this can also sync up as well.
Yes,
so
you can put on
the disc or whatever and whatever digital file, whatever you're using, and start watching right along with us if you want.
Exactly, and that way we'll all be synced up, and you can listen to the audio on your headphones, and then have the TV turned down or whatever you want to do.
And then
Your house.
Then you'll be like, Charles, shut up! I'm trying to watch Twin Peaks. Damn it!
Yes, but since we do not have our own Disembodio, and those of you who are Riff Tracks fans will know who that is.
Got it.
We're gonna have to do the the old after the third lion roar. That's when you start Dark Side of the Moon when you're watching Wizard of Oz. We're gonna figure something out extra for that for you guys out there in podcast land. So.
Yeah. All right. So thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed our little discussion about Twin Peaks and pop culture.
And I hope you go out on
homages.
YouTube and have yourselves a good laugh. And if we missed anything, please tell us because we want to know about them.
Yeah, we do. We want to hear from you guys. And thanks to everybody for listening. And come on back for whichever episode we end up covering, the commentary edition.
Deep dives. Deep dives.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.